Chapter 1624. The eyes of everyone in the Huang clan lit up and their hearts were filled with joy. Humans would always have a time to shine, even if it was a dandy like Huang Xiaoyou. At night, the capital was still extremely noisy. It was a mess everywhere, as if hundreds of billions of flies were buzzing together. Although the volume of the individual sounds was small, when put together due to the shocking number, it could cause a qualitative change. It could be said to be earth-shattering, making some people with weak willpower almost want to commit suicide. There were more and more battles in the city, and the frequency of the battles also became more and more frequent. Relatively, there were also more and more murders. There were constantly corpses turning into powder and yellow smoke rising in spirals. And on this night, all the big clans and law enforcement officers actually took action at the same time, as if they had discussed it beforehand. It seemed to be too much of a coincidence. Was this the so-called no coincidence, no story? Yi clan. Suddenly, in the midst of the tranquility, a clamor of voices rose up from all sides. Then a scream rose up and footsteps shuffled towards them. One after another, members of the Yi clan came forward, escorting prisoners and tying them up. There were injuries all over their bodies, obviously caused by the capture just now. The hall of the Yi clan was brightly lit. Countless experts of the Yi clan stood there silently. The whole room was silent. Yi Qinshan looked at the more than 300 people who were escorted out and just waved his hand. Kill them all. Why? Someone shouted in grief and indignation. I have been in the Yi clan for hundreds of years and have always followed the rules. For the Yi clan, I have worked hard even if I didn't make any contributions. Why are you arresting me? Why do you want to kill me? Give me a reason. The reason is very simple. Because all of you are law enforcement officers. Yi Qinshan explained and said apologetically, now, it has been confirmed that the Dharma Supreme is the successor of the heavenly demon and wants to torment the world. We are irreconcilable with him. This is the reason why I am worried about all of you staying here. Before he finished, hundreds of people had already started scolding in unison. Yi Qinshan, you are the heavenly demon. You are a scum of the world. You are a despicable person. Yi Qinshan, what are your intentions for slandering the Dharma Supreme like this? Yi Qinshan, you have wild ambitions. How dare you slander the Dharma Supreme? Yi Qinshan, I'll fight it out with you. Yi clan's thieves, the enforcers will never let you off. Your doomsday is not far away. I'll be waiting for you in the underworld. The Dharma Supreme is a heavenly demon? Bullshit your mother. Your Yi clan is the real heavenly devil, your entire family is. Yi Qinshan closed his eyes, sighed weakly and waved his hand. Amidst the cursing, the steel saber shone brightly. Cleave down. Pillars of blood soared into the sky. The Yi clan's courtyard was filled with the smell of blood. Give them a grand funeral. Yi Chen's face darkened. They were all good men. What a pity, the experts of the Yi clan also sighed speechlessly. Just as Yi Qinshan had said, these people were indeed good men. However, it was a pity that the law enforcers were now on opposing sides. The more courageous a man was, the more dangerous he would be. Some of them had come here hundreds of years ago, some of them were inserted here through their connections with the law enforcement officers, and some of them were obviously planted by the law enforcement officers. Of course, most of them were spies. There were even a few people whose identities were uncertain, but they were all eliminated at the same time. They would rather kill the wrong person than let them go. It was better to be safe than sorry. Before this, I had also tried to communicate with some people to see if they could be of use to me. However, none of them were willing to believe me. There was actually no exception. Yi Qinshan shook his head and smiled bitterly. These people are all courting death and their minds are rigid. Ancestor, why take them to heart? Someone advised. It's a pity for these people who are loyal to the law enforcement officers. Yi Qinshan sighed. Since ancient times, the law enforcement officers have been the most powerful force in the heavens and the pillars of the righteous path. But now, everyone was rather speechless. The Dharma Supreme. The key was that the heavenly demon now was actually the Dharma Supreme. And the law enforcement officers had already been led by this Dharma Supreme for more than 10,000 years. How long was this? After the Dharma Supreme had brought benefits to the people and led the law enforcement officers for 10,000 years, you suddenly appeared and said that the Dharma Supreme was a heavenly demon? Who would believe you? Only a fool would believe you. Not to mention the law enforcement officers. Even if it were the people in the world, how many would believe you? If they had to choose to believe the law enforcement officers or the Yi clan, the result was obvious. There was no need to choose at all. Other things aside, Yi Qinshan himself knew very well that even many people in the Yi clan would be doubtful. There were even quite a few people who suspected that he had ulterior motives. Because that was the Dharma Supreme. In the world, the symbol of justice was the least likely existence to be a heavenly demon. Let's put it this way. If at the same time Yi Qinshan said that the Dharma Supreme was a heavenly demon, and the Dharma Supreme also said that Yi Qinshan was a heavenly demon, then these Yi clan people would rather believe that Yi Qinshan was a heavenly demon than suspect the Dharma Supreme. Although they would still have to follow Yi Qinshan into battle eventually, this didn't stop them from believing in the first place. This was helplessness. It was also the prestige that the Dharma Supreme had built up over the past 10,000 years. No one could compare to him at all. Therefore, although Yi Qinshan felt that it was a pity to kill these people, he had no choice but to kill them now. Because these people who didn't know the truth would only obey the Dharma Supreme's orders. When it came to a real battle, the damage and casualties that these people could cause would be unimaginable. Because they had been in the Yi clan for many years and were all too familiar with everything in the Yi clan. The world right now is a strange world where the universe has been turned upside down. Yi Qinshan looked up at the sky and sighed. The righteous side has to be as careful as if they're staging a rebellion, advancing slowly and unsteadily in the shadows. On the other hand, the ugly side is using open and above-board methods to carry out their inhumane deeds. Tonight, countless people in the various great clans were sighing, feeling aggrieved and regretful. Countless rays of blood soared into the sky. The law enforcement officers. The law enforcement officers from various places were also carrying out a purge. Those people that the super clans had planted in the super clans were all dug out one by one, whether openly or secretly. There were even more people like this than those executed by the super clans. The law enforcement officers were equally merciless. The betrayal of the super clans was already a fact. What was the point of keeping these remnants of the heavenly demon alive? Therefore, the sabers and swords flashed. Blood filled the sky. Just this one night alone, at least 10,000 people were killed. This night, the road was paved with blood and heads flew everywhere. Later generations would call this night the Night of Massacre. There were also people who called this night the Night of the Blood River. High in the sky, the night sky. A faint cloud of black aura, like the fog of the night, was floating rapidly. A series of soul energy that couldn't be seen by the naked eye rapidly gathered toward this cloud of black aura like rivers flowing into the sea. Occasionally, there were also sinister and low chuckles inside, cruel and satisfied. But no one knew if those were the murmurs of the devil or the eerie laughter of the devil. Both sides that were destined to oppose each other waved their merciless butcher's knives in the dark. This night was destined to be cruel and cruel. After a night, the ground was covered in blood. In the sky thousands of miles around the capital, the thick stench of blood didn't dissipate for a long time. Even though Chu Yang and the rest were already mentally prepared, they still couldn't help but feel disgusted when they ate breakfast. They didn't eat breakfast at all. If they ate, they might even vomit. That way they wouldn't have to waste time. Since all the men were like this, Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei were even worse. Mo Qingwu's pretty face was pale and bloodless. Mo Lei was slightly better, but she had also lost her usual calm demeanor. There was no other reason. With the two women's current cultivation level and the strength of their divine senses, how could the changes in the city be hidden from them? It seemed like this was one of the few negative effects brought about by their cultivation level. How many people had he killed to create such a bleak and terrifying atmosphere? At this moment, the sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. It was a beautiful scene, but everywhere was filled with gloomy haze. I can't eat any more. I can't eat any more. Huang Xiaoyu retched and came to Chu Yang. He shook his head and sighed. How many people died last night? It's so miserable. Not to mention experts like Chu Yang, even people like young Master Huang also felt the strange changes in the surrounding environment. Chu Yang sighed and said, it's definitely not a small number. I'm afraid, there are no less than 20,000 people. He had experienced a lot of battles in the lower three heavens, so he had some experience in this aspect. Just by looking at the smell of blood, he could basically calculate the situation. This was originally Tai Longcheng's experience as a general, but Chu Yang had secretly learned it. However, the 20,000 people here couldn't be compared to the 20,000 people in the lower three heavens. The 20,000 people who died here were enough to overturn any dynasty in the lower three heavens thousands of times. They were all experts. More than 20,000 people died in one day. Huang Xiaoyu exclaimed, oh my God, so many people. How can it be? Mo Tianji's face darkened. The copper coins in his sleeves clattered for a long time before they stopped. He raised his head and said, Elders Feng and you still need at least 5 days to arrive. If they didn't set off in advance. Chu Yang nodded and said, 5 days. They need to travel at full speed. Last night, through the Huang clan's special communication device, they had informed the Chu clan in the southeast. At such a time, the Chu clan couldn't be content with staying in one corner. They had to devote themselves to the general trend of the martial world and do their best to turn the tide. According to the duo's judgment, even if Feng and Yu immediately set off at full speed after receiving the news, they would still need at least 5 days to reach here. In this battle, besides facing countless law enforcement officers and the extremely powerful Dharma Supreme, there was also an unknown number of heavenly demons who had already recovered. Chu Yang really didn't have the confidence to win. Although his brothers were already second-grade supreme martial artists, they still didn't have the confidence to win against the heavenly demons. I don't know if Elder Wu can make it in time. Mo Tianji's eyes flashed with a strange light. Chapter 1625. Chu Yang was silent for a moment. Then he insipidly gave a conclusion and said in a heavy voice, "You will definitely come." Mo Tianji nodded. He wanted to say something but stopped. Chu Yang raised his head and said softly, "I think Lura will come too." Mo Tianji turned his head and looked outside. He sighed and said, "Today's aura is really terrifying." A trace of panic flashed through his eyes. Mo Tianji was extremely intelligent. But he couldn't understand the meaning behind Chu Yang's words at this moment. He only felt that his heart was in chaos at this moment. With Mo Tianji's current cultivation and the nature of the master of calculation and manipulation, how could he say such an unwise thing if he didn't really feel it? Today's aura was undoubtedly terrifying. If it were an ordinary person, it wouldn't be surprising if they were scared to death. But how could it shake Mo Tianji's mind? Only a special person would be able to make a wise man lose his mind like this. Chu Yang fixed his gaze on Mo Tianji for a moment. Then he changed the topic, seemingly intentionally or unintentionally. "Unfortunately, Elder Ning seems to be too happy to return to the lower three heavens. If we have his help in the battle, it may be a little easier." Mo Tianji quickly calmed down. He smiled and said, "This battle is destined to be ours." Chu Yang nodded. "Are you ready?" Mo Tianji nodded. "Then, let's begin." Chu Yang let out a long breath. Mo Tianji nodded and clapped his hands. Clap, clap. Gu Du Xing and the rest quickly gathered around. Everyone's eyes were shining. "Are we going to start?" Mo Tianji smiled. The legend of tribulation has been around for a long time. When the tribulation is united, nothing can be done. Gu Du Xing and the rest will each go one way. Dong Wushang and Mo Lei will go one way. Go according to last night's plan. Everyone can do whatever they want. The only thing you need to pay attention to is your own safety. Your safety is the most important thing. You must return safely. Okay. Got it? Understood. As for me and Big Brother, we will stay in the center and wait for your news. A cold light flashed through Mo Tianji's gentle eyes. His voice became more and more indifferent. Kill anyone who tries to stop us. Everyone's eyes were suddenly filled with killing intent. At this moment, the murderous intent of many peak powerhouses gathered together. It was truly domineering and dominating. Mo Tianji turned his head to look at Mo Qingwu. His voice became gentle as he said, "Little sister Yu." Mo Qingwu raised her eyebrows and said with a smile, "Second brother, don't worry." His little sister had never danced in her life, but from this moment on, she would dance alongside him. The corner of Mo Tianji's mouth twitched as he said, "All right. Let me remind you one last time. Be careful and don't force yourself." Chu Yang didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at Chen Qingwu deeply. Mo Qingwu's eyes were like water as she gazed at him. Si Yang also didn't say a word. The two of them didn't say anything else, but the expression in their eyes said it all. In Jianghu, some things are destined to be unavoidable and some things must be done. You must take care of yourself. I will. You too, take care of yourself. A chuckle that was like the sound of a fairy rose in spirals, blowing away the melancholy in this place. Red clothes flashed, and in an instant, a red shadow suddenly swept out like lightning. In a flash, it was already 1,000 feet away. Within 1,000 feet of space, it was full of bright red shadows, graceful and graceful. It was like a fairy from the heavens had suddenly revealed her stunning and beautiful dance in this noisy world. The red shadow was still flashing in midair, but Mo Qingwu's graceful figure had already disappeared in the northeast direction. "From now on, I don't want to be protected by your wings anymore. I want to use my strength to fight alongside you and reach the peak. I know that what you need is not a flower in a greenhouse or just a flower vase. You will definitely experience ice blades and frost in your life. You will brave ambushes from all sides and countless dangers will accompany you. Then I will go forward with indomitable will and step all the way. Even if there is a storm of blood, I will accompany you. One day, look at me, I will dance to the heavens for you. Mo Qingwu was the youngest in the group. In the past, she had never gone out alone to carry out any mission. Everyone took care of her, pitied her, loved her, and never let her get involved in dirty, messy, or dangerous matters. But this time, in this world of chaos, ambushes and crises from all sides, the first one to rush out and shoulder the responsibility was Mo Qingwu. I will help you shoulder all the difficulties and dangers. Good. Awesome. Gu Duxing let out a long roar and also rose. With a flash of incomparably bright sword light, mixed with that solitary arrogance, he rushed to the north like lightning. The two of us are going too. Dong Wuxiang stood up and laughed. When he spoke, even if it was completely unintentional, a heroic spirit and majestic aura spontaneously arose. Mo Lei stood up gracefully. Both of them were dressed in black and stood side by side. The next moment, Dong Wuxiang's burly figure strode out. With every step he took, it seemed that the ground would tremble a little. He was just one person, but his aura was like thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers vowing to go to war together. Good spirit, good man. Huang Xiaoyou's eyes revealed extreme fanaticism and envy. Man's fate was unpredictable. On this day when the tribulation and tribulation joined forces for the first time, the person who was their witness was actually Huang Xiaoyou. If Mo Lei was not included, Huang Xiaoyou was actually the only witness to the beginning of the tribulation's legend. Heaven made a fool of people, nature made a fool of people, and helplessness made a fool of people. An unparalleled mighty warrior like Dong Wuxiang made Huang Xiaoyou's eyes light up. He immediately understood. What is a man? This is a real man. A real man, a real hero. It seemed that his usual behavior was not even fit to carry his shoes in front of such a hero. Huang Xiaoyou, the super profligate who had been profligate for half of his life, never reflected on himself. But at this moment he lowered his head and started to reflect for the first time. Then he started to think about his future path. Ao Xian, you go to the east, I'll go to the west. Rui Badong let out a long roar, like the cry of a phoenix. His body shot out. In the air he bent his legs, opened his arms and bounced his legs. Suddenly he spread his wings and glided away like a huge bird. His posture was extremely beautiful. Ao Xian laughed. This guy is trying so hard to show the demeanor of a phoenix on a journey and the emperor of birds descending to the world. But he's acting like a crow flapping its wings. What a fucking shame. Forget it, I'll open everyone's eyes and show them what a dragon is like in the world. The brothers laughed. Ao Xian's bones made crackling sounds. With a loud and clear dragon roar, his body was really like an ancient tyrannosaurus, ferociously rushing out from the ground. Along the way he was like a tornado that swept across the world, wreaking havoc and disappearing in the east. Xie Danxiong smiled and said, according to what we said yesterday, I'll go to the south. His body floated out elegantly with a natural elegance. Like a light cloud, he disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Fuck, all of them are walking so coquettishly and casually. Fuck, they've used all the ways to be in the limelight. What about your second master Ji? How do you expect me to leave? GMO muttered angrily, these bastards, none of them are good. I'll go to the southeast. Let's go, let's go. Suddenly he shouted towards the sky, dog boss, dog ant, fucking dog ant. With a whoosh he disappeared without a trace. What? Luo Kadi howled and disappeared without a second word. In the blink of an eye, a person disappeared in front of everyone. In the sky, thousands of wind and clouds suddenly gathered. The wind and clouds surged and the wind was as fast as lightning. Just like the tide of the martial world, the wind and clouds came and went from the sky to the earth. The wind and clouds danced. Looking at his brothers leaving one by one, Xu Yang only had a smile on his face. Like Mo Qingji, both of their faces were glowing. There was also some pride, a pride that came from the bottom of their hearts. In the turbulent era, my brothers and I were just like this. We were not afraid of hardships. We stood up, laughed in the face of the wind, and looked down on the rain of blood. We crossed the martial world with our swords and ruled the world. At this moment, even Xu Yang and Mo Qingji felt their blood boiling, not to mention Huang Xiaoyou who was watching from the side. There's just one thing. I still don't understand what G Mo's dog ant means. Isn't a dog's ant still a dog? Is he referring to a female dog? Mo Tianji smiled bitterly and shook his head, indicating that there would be a day when he had to ask someone for advice. I deeply feel that. Chu Yang said deeply. He himself might not understand what it means. Or maybe he thinks that it's more imposing to say it that way. Haha, it's a sensitive department. Both of them laughed at the same time. You. Huang Xiaoyou looked at them dumbfoundedly. Is the purpose of your movement this time to mess up the Tianding Grand Meeting? Mess up the Tianding Grand Meeting? No, it's not. Mo Qinji and Chu Yang looked at him strangely. Do you still think that there's a Tianding Grand Meeting now? There's no Tianding Grand Meeting. Since there's no Tianding Grand Meeting, what's there to mess up? No Tianding Grand Meeting? How come there's no Tianding Grand Meeting? Huang Xiaoyou was dumbfounded. If there's no Tianding Grand Meeting, what's there? A battlefield. There's only a battlefield. Chu Yang revealed a sharp and lofty look on his face and he said slowly, and it's a super big battlefield that's never been seen before. The cruelty of this great battle would be unprecedented since ancient times. Even if there's no end to it, it will definitely be unprecedentedly tragic. Chapter 1626. But you and I are brothers. We have no regrets. A real man has no regrets. Chu Yang laughed heartily. He raised his eyebrows like a divine sword out of its sheath. From this moment on, I will test my sword against the world. Who dares to accept my challenge? That's right. We have no regrets. Victory or defeat is a hero. Mo Tianji waved his sleeves and stood up. He staggered back to his room and chuckled. We have no regrets. I have no regrets too. If I have no regrets in my life, what else can I ask for? Mo Tianji had already returned to his room. From this moment on, Brother Tribulation had taken the lead. The world would definitely follow suit. The legend of tribulation of the present era had officially kicked off at this very moment. Mo Tianji had a heavy responsibility on his shoulders. From this moment on, everything was in his hands. He had to keep a high level of consciousness and strategize. He had to adjust the movements of any side at any time. Until this Tianding Grand Meeting in name only ended completely. Or, the Battle of Tribulation Heavens had completely ended. Only then could Mo Tianji rest. To him, even the slightest bit of carelessness, even if it was just closing his eyes for a short moment of rest, was extremely precious and hard to obtain. Chu Yang chuckled. Suddenly his heroic spirit erupted. He slammed the table and shouted, "Bring the wine." Fortunately, there was still young Master Huang by his side. Otherwise, the King of Hell's heroism would be in vain. Because at this moment, besides Chu Yang, only Huang Xiaoyou was tactful. As for the other experts of the Huang clan, it seemed that they couldn't lower their status. When young Master Huang heard that Chu Yang wanted wine, he quickly brought over the wine that he had prepared. Chu Yang didn't even look at it. He slapped open the mud seal. However, right at this moment, a violent gust of wind suddenly whistled out, and in an instant, a few cracking sounds rang out. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The plaques of many shops outside suddenly broke apart for no reason, and then they were blown away by the gust of wind and vanished without a trace. A series of screams and screams were also heard. But it came quickly. It came even faster. It only took a moment for it to stop. However, this pause was a little too fast. It was as if all the sounds outside had disappeared. The world suddenly fell into an unprecedented deathly stillness. It was as quiet as a ghost. Huang Xiaoyou stood still in a panic and almost sat on the ground. That sudden gust of wind almost blew his heart out of his chest. His heart throbbed inexplicably. In an instant they were filled with panic. If it weren't for the heroic spirit of witnessing Tribulation's action before, it was not rare for him to pee in his pants. Anyway, Master Huang had withstood it. It was okay in the past, but today was the day of witnessing the beginning of the legend of Tribulation. He couldn't be too cowardly. More popular novels, Baidu search. Chu Yang held the wine pot in one hand. With a wine cup in one hand, he didn't even flinch in the face of such an unforeseen event. He poured himself a cup and drank with a relaxed and carefree expression, as if he didn't feel anything at all. What happened? Huang Xiaoyou raised his head and asked with a frown. Something happened on the noisy street outside. The people outside suddenly disappeared for some reason. They still didn't know what had happened. It should be a top-notch expert who had made a move. The entire area has been cleared out. One of the Huang family's experts who had been standing guard outside walked in. He frowned and his eyes were a little bewildered. He answered in a low voice. This person's strength was not bad. He was already a second-grade supreme martial artist. Even if he wasn't the strongest in the Huang family, he could be ranked in the top 10. But at this moment, with the sudden appearance of that strange gust of wind, the fear in his heart gradually deepened. In terms of certainty, he wasn't as confident as Master Huang. Besides the fact that the ignorant were fearless, Master Huang believed in Master Huang even more. With Master Huang around, what did he need to worry about? Unlike Master Huang's ignorance and fearlessness, that Huang family's expert's palms were already full of cold sweat at this moment, and he only felt a chill down his spine. If that gust of wind was made by someone, then what level was this person's cultivation at? It was probably just a matter of raising his hand to kill someone like him. Let's go out and see what happened. Before Huang Xiaoyou finished his sentence, his voice suddenly stopped. No, it should be frozen. Because at this moment, a gust of freezing aura suddenly came from the front. Wherever it passed, frost and snow would fall instantly, and the temperature of the air would suddenly drop by dozens of degrees. On the ground in front of the inn, a layer of white frost condensed rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Under the sunlight, it reflected a gorgeous brilliance. Huang Xiaoyou stared dumbfounded at the miraculous changes in front of him. He shuddered, this. He couldn't even speak clearly. It was still midsummer now, and it was so hot that people couldn't wait to bare their shoulders. But once this aura came, it actually turned the hot summer into midwinter instantly. Such a change was really unimaginable. Be patient and calm. Chu Yang didn't raise his eyebrows. Chu Yang didn't even lift his eyelids. He said indifferently, don't forget that the one with you now is the Tribulation Sword Master. Once the cold aura came, Chu Yang already had a conclusion in his heart about who was coming. More popular novels, Baidu search. Given Chu Yang's current strength and cultivation, as long as it wasn't the Dharma Supreme Heavenly Demon Wu Jueqing, Ning Tianya and the few others who were of note, as for the rest, he didn't have to worry about them at all. Chu Yang was even being very modest. Even if it was the few people in front of him, Chu Yang might not necessarily lose if they really fought. And even if he really couldn't win, he was still confident that he could escape. Moreover, ever since Chu Yang entered the martial world, he had been through hundreds of battles, and he had never really used all his trump cards. Chu Yang could be said to have endless confidence and certainty. But upon hearing Chu Yang's words, the few experts of the Huang clan turned their heads abruptly in shock. Big brother, can you not be so scary? Although we vaguely guessed it, you still shouldn't say it out so directly. Don't you know what kind of impact this name gives to people? It's a shock that almost turns the sky upside down. Besides, although this name is indeed very impressive and awesome, this is the territory of the Yi clan. You're the target of the big clans. Of course you may not be afraid, but we are. You don't care about the big clans and even want to destroy them, but we're afraid of being destroyed by the big clans. But Huang Xiaoyou nodded from the bottom of his heart. With a look of deep agreement, he actually sat down casually and said, that's right. What's there to be afraid of? Don't be afraid, I'm here. What's there to be afraid of? What's there to be afraid of? Sir, give me a sip of wine. My legs are trembling a little. I'm really not afraid, it's really cold in this damn weather. His teeth chattered. He was already scared out of his wits, but he was still talking big. Swoosh. A series of sounds of clothes fluttering in the wind sounded in unison. Then, everyone felt a snow-white flash in front of them, cold and austere. A person suddenly appeared in front of them. White clothes, white robe, white scabbard, white iron sword hilt, white sword tassel, white headscarf, even his shoes and socks were white. Instantly, a gust of cold air filled with the desolate ice field rushed towards them. More popular novels, Baidu search. At the front, a white-bearded old man in white stood with his hands behind his back. His figure was tall and straight, and his gaze was as sharp as a sword. He looked inside. Someone stepped forward. She had a slim figure and a beautiful face, but her gaze was extremely cold. Then a cold voice was heard. May I ask if Lord Chu Yang, the current master of Calamity Sword Chu Junwei Yang, is here? Ling Hanxue of the Ling clan is here to visit. Ling Hanxue of the Ling clan. This time Huang Xiaoyou's legs really went soft and he almost sat down. He barely managed to support himself. Damn it, if there's nothing then there's nothing. Once there's something, the direct descendant of the big clans will come directly. Sir, you're really good at making trouble. You're really able to keep your composure. I'm Sir's friend. I can't embarrass him now. I must hold on. Isn't it just a big clan? There's nothing great about it. Chu Yang didn't get up. He still sat there boldly. He was still holding the wine pot and drinking by himself. He said lightly, Miss Ling, long time no see. How are you? Ling Hanshua's eyes revealed an extremely complicated and indescribable look. Back then, when Chu Yang first left the southeast, he had traveled with the Ling clan together with Zi Sheqing and Chu Lu. At that time, Chu Yang was still a complete nobody. But now, at this moment, in less than a year's time, he had changed into the world-renowned master of Calamity Sword. He and his brother Calamity had already created a new legend of Calamity Sword in the martial world. Now, the name of Calamity Sword Master Chu Yang was well known all over the world. He already had the powerful strength to control the martial world. Compared to the past, it was simply like a dream. It was unbelievable. Ling Hanshue sighed softly, and her eyes revealed a sorrowful look. At that time, second uncle Ling Hanwu was still around. When she thought of second uncle Ling Hanwu, Ling Hanshue felt an indescribable bitterness in her heart. Second uncle Ling Hanwu, who struggled and suffered all his life, was alone all his life. Chu Yang slowly raised his head. His gaze was also somewhat complicated. Now he thought of Ling Hanwu, Yi Chuchen and Meng Chaoran. Back then Yi Chuchen and Meng Chaoran were injured, and Ling Hanwu died heroically in battle. Everything was still vivid in his mind. But this world was already different. The difference between heaven and earth was huge. Ling Hanwu's infatuation, Yi Chuchen's persistence, and Meng Chaoran's pain. He thought of his own teacher. Now, every night, he would drink wine with Ling Hanwu's memorial tablet. With a glass of wine, the lonely light was like a pea. In the waning of the night, they would get drunk together. Even in life and death, they were still brothers. Chapter 1627. When Ling Hanshue came in, she didn't say who wanted to see Chu Yang. This meant that she respected Chu Yang. I don't need to use my seniority to suppress you. Chu Yang was somewhat touched. Not for anything else but for this respect. After all, Chu Yang's sudden increase in strength was still a top secret. Based on Chu Yang's strength that day, it was impossible for him to reach the peak of the world. It was already a rare and commendable attitude for the Ling clan to give him such respect at this moment. As soon as Chu Yang finished speaking, the elder standing outside smiled gently. His voice was as cold as the northern cold wind. He said slowly, Ling Muyang from the Ling clan, greetings to the current Tribulation Sword Master. Huang Xiaoyou and all the other experts of the Huang clan felt as if they were struck by lightning. They felt dizzy and almost couldn't believe their ears. Ling Muyang from the Ling clan. He actually came in person. What did this name represent? It was enough to scare people out of their wits and shatter their souls. This name was one of the founders of a big clan. The name of the ancestor of the Ling clan. The previous generation's Tribulation Sword. Ling Muyang learned swordsmanship when he was 3 years old. He killed people when he was 5 years old. When he was 7 years old, he could already fight against a martial king with a sword. He hated evil all his life. He walked the martial world and killed people. Among the ancestors, the one with the heaviest killing intent was this Ling Muyang from the Ling clan. But in the entire martial world, the most respected person was also Ling Muyang from the Ling clan. Ling Muyang never killed the innocent. Eradicate all the injustices in the world and kill all the people in the world who deserve to be killed. This sentence had always been Ling Muyang's motto. It was also his standard of conduct in the martial world. Chu Yang raised his head and stared at him. Outside, in the endless world of ice and snow, 2 sharp gazes shot straight in and met Chu Yang's gaze. 2 people, 4 gazes, met in midair and made contact with each other. 81W. 81 net, world-defying heavens. At this moment even Ling Hanshue, who was standing at the side, could clearly feel the sword aura in the air. It was as if 4 peerless swords had collided with each other. Just by looking at each other, the faint sword aura scattered in all directions and actually cut the surrounding air into pieces. He actually used his gaze as a sword, and the sword light tore through space. His might was so uniform and it was truly shocking and terrifying. One old and one young, 2 peerless experts of 2 generations. Before they even had a chance to exchange words, they were already pointing their swords at each other, fighting with all their might. Could it be that a great war was about to break out? Everyone suddenly felt a pressure as heavy as a mountain, suddenly assaulting their hearts. In a flash, the sword chi that filled the air collapsed with a sudden sound. Everyone felt as if a meteor was falling from the sky. Vanish. Chu Yang retracted his gaze. Then he looked down and remained motionless. Ling Muyang also retracted his eyes at the same time. He slightly closed his eyes and then opened them again. He looked deeply at Chu Yang and said in a cautious and heavy voice, Tribulation Sword Master, you're indeed worthy of your reputation. If my eyes aren't blurred, Sword Master Chu is a sword supremacy, and he has already reached the ultimate grade. Such an achievement is not only shocking but also inconceivable. There was a hint of horror in Ling Muyang's voice. Being a sword supremacy was nothing out of the ordinary, and it didn't matter if he was a low-grade supreme martial artist. The problem was Chu Yang's age. Ling Muyang had never seen such achievements at such a young age. He didn't even think about it. One must know that Ling Muyang was more than 10,000 years old this year, and he was only slightly older than Chu Yang, who was in his 20s. No one knew that Ling Muyang's words had caused a huge shock to Ling Hanxue. Sword supremacy? An ultimate grade at that? Ling Hanxue almost fell to the ground at this moment. She suddenly turned her head dizzily, and her beautiful eyes looked at Chu Yang in disbelief, as if she was looking at a prehistoric monster. Ling Hanxue had been with Chu Yang for a period of time, and she thought that she knew Chu Yang's strength very well. Although Chu Yang might have improved in the process of their separation, no matter how much he improved, so what? After all, it had only been less than a year. However, Ling Muyang said that Chu Yang had already reached the ultimate grade. Not only could Ling Hanxue not doubt this, she couldn't even doubt it. But what kind of promotion speed was this? Wasn't this too fast? When she saw this guy before the medicine banquet last year, he was an emperor grade. And a monarch grade? Of course, with Chu Yang's age, it was already rare for him to have the strength of a monarch grade. However, in just a year's time he actually skipped so many levels, and directly rose to ultimate grade. And sword supremacy at that. A super tyrannical existence that could surpass all practitioners of the same level. This is a monster. Ling Hanxue thought incredulously, is this real or fake? Obviously, she shouldn't doubt the elder's judgment, but she still couldn't help but doubt it, because this was too unbelievable. She even hoped that Chu Yang would deny it. She would rather the elder make a mistake than believe that this young man had achieved something that others couldn't achieve in one or even several generations. But Chu Yang's following words completely destroyed her hope, and also made her completely dumbfounded. Elder Ling really has good eyesight to be able to see through my current progress at a glance. This mere achievement is not worth mentioning. Chu Yang raised his head calmly and smiled slightly. Elder Ling has come from afar, can you give me some face and let me have a drink? Just now, when he lowered his head and slightly closed his eyes with Ling Muyang, he actually took the opportunity to eliminate the damage to his eyes caused by Ling Muyang's invisible sword aura. Both of them were well aware of this. Their current strength was just about the same level. Maybe Ling Muyang was a little stronger, but definitely not by much. That was the reason why Ling Muyang said middle rank utmost exalted. That was because that was precisely his current realm. Okay. Ling Muyang strode forward without hesitation. Huang Xiaoyou and the Huang clan's experts all felt a sword full of murderous aura coming out of its sheath, carrying endless sharpness. It turned into a human figure and walked forward step by step. An indescribable illusion arose spontaneously. To them, the person in front of them was clearly a sword, a peerless divine sword with endless sharpness. Everyone subconsciously felt a burst of pain on their skin. It seemed that they had been cut by the sword aura. Ling Muyang walked to the door step by step. The two Huang clan's supreme martial artists on both sides of the door had long been intimidated by his aura, and involuntarily took 2 steps back. Then they felt that it was not enough, so they took 2 more steps back. But they still felt that the sword aura was still coiling around their throat and other vital parts, so they simply took 3 steps back. And another 5 steps back. Bang. Their backs leaned against the wall at the same time, or it would be more appropriate to say that they bumped into the wall. After taking 12 steps back, they were actually forced to the walls on both sides of the courtyard. This bump actually caused the walls to shake for a while and they almost fell down. How could a mere wall block the retreat of a Supreme Being expert? There was no other reason other than the fact that the 2 Supreme Being experts had long focused all of their mental strength, martial power, and physical strength on that completely traceless yet clearly sensed sword energy. That collision only had the strength of an ordinary person. Although the momentum of the collision was swift, in the end, it was still unable to knock down the wall. The 2 of them were overwhelmed with shock. As the saying goes, the layman enjoys the show, while the expert appreciates the skill. Although the 2 of them couldn't understand Ling Muyang's realm, they still understood that the current situation was probably because Ling Muyang didn't deliberately target them. Otherwise, even if it was just a normal aura, as long as he exerted his full strength, second-grade supreme martial artists like them would definitely be crushed to death by his aura. If he deliberately wanted to kill someone, he didn't even need to make a move. He could easily kill them with a glance or a breath. Breath formed into a sword, gaze sharp. Although it was a legendary technique, the person in front of them definitely knew it. These two people, are they your people? Ling Muyang asked calmly. No. Chu Yang smiled. He understood what the other party meant. These two people were really too weak. Chu Yang looked at them playfully. He knew in his heart, Ling Muyang was showing off his strength? Or, back down? Ling Muyang didn't turn around but only lightly shouted. Several experts of the Huang clan only felt that their chests were violently shaken, and they almost spat out blood. They didn't dare to disobey and retreated in panic. They instantly disappeared without a trace. This little Ru. Ling Muyang looked at Huang Xiaoyou and frowned. This little guy doesn't look good, and his cultivation is trash. At most, he's a little stronger than ordinary people. How can the Tribulation Sword Master have such a friend? Even if such a person recommends himself as a servant, it's shameful. He's really too inferior. I'm Huang Xiaoyou from the Huang clan in the southeast region. Yes, Senior Ling. Huang Xiaoyou didn't know why, but when he was looked at by the other party's very ordinary gaze, he suddenly felt as if he was already dead. A creepy feeling arose spontaneously as if doomsday had arrived. He was so scared that he almost peed in his pants. Seeing Huang Xiaoyou in such a pathetic state, Ling Muyang glared at him and said, "What qualifications does such a trash have to listen here? Back down now." Chu Yang frowned but he didn't stop him. He only said lightly, "Senior Ling, you're so impressive." Ling Muyang stood in front of him and said coldly, "Oh? Wherever I'm, there will never be an enemy of mine." Chu Yang said coldly, "I believe that you're the same. But now, relying on your own strength, do you think that you can bully others? Bullying a young man, I don't know if it would make Elder Ling feel better?" Zhang Tai said. "Will it be very pleasurable?" Chu Yang suddenly raised his head. His gaze was like an arrow piercing through the air. Presumptuous. Outside, the other 7 people of the Ling clan shouted in unison. Everyone looked over with an unfriendly face. "Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to your ancestor like this? Do you really think that you're so great just because you're the Tribulation Sword Master?" Presumptuous. Chu Yang slowly shifted his gaze and drank back the tea. His gaze was cold and constant, like a vulture staring at its prey. "Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like this? Of course the Tribulation Sword Master is great. Do you want to have a taste of it?" In an instant, the originally relatively calm atmosphere suddenly became hostile. Chapter 1628. Chu Yang sneered and looked at the few people from the Ling clan. The Tribulation Sword was ready to be drawn. Book updated with high quality. If these people dared to act rashly, Chu Yang would dare to kill them. Even if they were from the Ling clan, even if Ling Muyang was present, so what? These people came here today to discuss how to deal with the Dharma Supreme and the extraterrestrial demon. Otherwise it wouldn't be just the Ling clan who came but the other big clans. However, Chu Yang didn't care about using such a method of coercion to form an alliance. He might as well not. I admit that I'm important to this world, but this world isn't important enough for me to give up my principles. Ling Muyang's eyes were cold and he said lightly, "Why? Does Sword Master Chu want to fight? Can't I teach a playboy a lesson, with my status?" Chu Yang said coldly, "Besides being a playboy, he's also my companion. Bullying my companion in front of me, even an elder can't do it. Not to mention you, even the Dharma Supreme and the extraterrestrial demon have to give me an explanation if they want to fight." The 7 supreme martial artists of the Ling clan snorted angrily. Their aura was extremely fierce, and they were about to explode at any moment. Ling Hanshua's face was full of anxiety. She didn't expect Chu Yang to be so presumptuous and unscrupulous. Ling Muyang had said something before he came this time. Let's see what kind of person this Tribulation Sword Master is. And he was indeed here in his own way. But this condescending way of doing things made Chu Yang feel disgusted, extremely disgusted. Huang Xiaoyou was extremely terrified. Finally, he said in a trembling voice, "Big brother Chu, I'm fine. Why don't I leave first? Cough cough, you're all important people. Don't hurt your friendship because of a playboy like me. It's not worth it. Sit down." Chu Yang said domineeringly, "When it's time for you to leave, I'll naturally invite you to leave. And I'll be polite. But when you're bullied, it's not a problem that can be solved by hiding. When will you get rid of your bad habit of bullying the weak and fearing the strong? Can't you be more unyielding? Why don't you show off your power when you bully people? What do people seek in the martial world? In the end, it was nothing more than a matter of face. You promised to be with me, so I naturally have to protect your face. No one can bully my companions in front of me." Chu Yang said in an unquestionable manner, "Before this matter is over, I'm not going to let you go. You can't go." Ling Hanxue said anxiously, "Swordmaster Chu, we're facing a great enemy now. Let's not fight over these things, shall we?" Chu Yang curled his lips and said indifferently, "A dispute based on personal feelings? Fighting spirit?" Not to mention the fact that they were facing a great enemy, even if they were going to lose their heads in the next moment, they still had to take a deep breath first. "I just want to fight for it, can't I?" Ling Muyang's eyes lit up as he said indifferently, "Today, if you insist on doing this, I'll give you a chance. In that case, a battle is unavoidable." Chu Yang sneered, "Oh? Is that so?" Ling Muyang said solemnly, "If you and I fight today, no matter who wins or loses, it will definitely trigger a great battle between Tribulation and the Ling clan. The final result will either be your defeat or my Ling clan's destruction, or both sides suffering great losses. No matter what the outcome is, it will cause the strength of humans to be damaged before the battle against the extraterrestrial demons. We will definitely lose the battle. All living things in the world will fall into the hands of the demons because of this battle. At that time, the demons will rule over all living things and all living things will fall into oblivion. Swordmaster Chu, are you still sure about your persistence?" Chu Yang's lips revealed an extremely cold smile. "Even if it's like what you said, so what?" Ling Muyang couldn't help but feel a little stunned. He really didn't expect that this Tribulation Swordmaster would be so tough. Even when facing himself and the common people of the world, he still did not back down a single step. His attitude was very obvious. If you want to fight, then fight. A more straightforward way to put it would be, who's afraid of who? Now that he had met such a troublemaker, and this troublemaker had great power to influence the overall situation in the future, Ling Muyang couldn't help but feel a big headache even though he had cultivated for thousands of years. He originally came to test Chu Yang's temper, and Huang Xiaoyu was just a tool. But he didn't expect that because of this tool in his heart, it seemed that he was going to make a fool of himself. "Tribulation Swordmaster, what do you want?" Ling Muyang asked solemnly. "It's very simple as long as you apologize to him." Chu Yang said coldly, "If you make a mistake, you have to bear the consequences. There are some things that can't be discussed if you're not willing to compromise." At this moment, everyone doubted if they were hallucinating. Chu Yang actually asked the ancestor of the Ling clan to apologize to a playboy. Ling Muyang almost fainted from anger because of Chu Yang's request. He actually wants me to apologize to Huang Xiaoyu? Bastard, apologize to him? Who does he think he is? Does he deserve it? Does he deserve it? A Ling clan expert at the side couldn't restrain his anger, and finally couldn't help but scold Chu Yang. Chu Yang's complexion immediately sank. His body, which was originally sitting upright, suddenly moved, and a series of afterimages suddenly appeared. Ling Muyang frowned but didn't make a move to stop it. He only watched Chu Yang's movements with rapt attention. One ray of cold light pierces 10,000 feet. Chu Yang shouted in a low voice. He used his hand as a sword and 10,000 cold stars scattered out. The other supreme martial artists of the Ling clan were immediately blocked outside. When they rushed back, Chu Yang had already shouted in a low voice, "What's the harm in slaughtering the whole world?" Everyone's movements froze again. The 7th grade supreme martial artist of the Ling clan who spoke previously couldn't move at all. He looked at Chu Yang's slender fingers in horror, and cold sweat poured down his head. There was only an icy cold feeling below his throat. Chu Yang's 2 fingers had already gently pinched his Adam's apple, and his strength had yet to be released. He believed that at this moment, as long as anyone had the slightest movement, Chu Yang would be able to crush his Adam's apple immediately. In the next moment, the tyrannical force would completely destroy his brain. At this moment, no one would be able to save him in time. No means or tricks would be effective. "Sword Master Chu," Ling Muyang said in a low voice. Chu Yang completely ignored this. His hand was still as steady as a rock. He stared coldly at that supreme martial artist of the Ling clan and said slowly, "Who do you think you are in front of me? How dare you shout at me like this?" This supreme martial artist of the Ling clan was already so ashamed and angry when he looked at Chu Yang's eyes. But at this moment his life was in Chu Yang's hands, and he really didn't dare to move at all. He had just scolded Huang Xiaoyu as who does he think he is. Now karma actually came so quickly. Being questioned by someone else, who does he think he is? And his situation was 10 times more humiliating than Huang Xiaoyu's. At least Huang Xiaoyu was still free, but he was already under someone else's control. He was so ashamed and angry that he didn't want to live anymore, but he didn't dare to commit suicide. Because if he risked his life now he would die, but the consequence would cause the Ling clan and the Tribulation Sword Master to break off on the spot. And the situation in front of him was already clear. The Tribulation Sword Master didn't care about breaking off. But the Ling clan could not care. It was related to the lives of the world. The Ling clan couldn't bear this responsibility. Sword Master Chu, what do you want? Ling Muyang took a deep breath and asked. Chu Yang didn't turn back. His fingers were still holding the Adam's apple and he said lightly, Elder Ling, that move just now is the Tribulation Sword technique. The name of this move is, what harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? Chu Yang smiled strangely and said word by word, I believe Elder Ling should have heard of this move before? Ling Muyang only felt a sense of suffocation in his chest. Chu Yang's real intention of saying this wasn't to explain the so-called Tribulation Sword technique, but to reiterate his previous words. The lives of the world? So what? With the Tribulation Sword in my hand, what harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? It's indeed a good sword technique. It's fierce and domineering and it's impossible to guard against. Ling Muyang said in a low voice. Haha. Chu Yang slowly loosened his grip. He turned around and went back to his seat. Then he picked up the wine jar and poured the wine into it. Then he slowly said, actually, you can kill people in this world as long as you have the ability to do so. But don't underestimate people. Some things can't be done. Some consequences are very serious. After pouring the wine, he raised his head slightly and looked at the supreme martial artist of the Ling clan. He said lightly, do you understand? The supreme martial artist of the Ling clan blushed and said angrily, you. Chu Yang said coldly, you still don't understand? I'm talking to your ancestor. The Ling clan shouldn't be so ill-mannered. He rolled his eyes and said lightly, I'm really a little disappointed. The rumor of the Ling clan is actually not true. Ling Muyang took a deep breath, turned around and shouted, you all can leave first. Wait. Chu Yang didn't give in. The matter just now isn't over yet. You insulted my friend in front of so many people. Now you have to apologize in front of so many people. It's better to pay back what needs to be paid back as soon as possible. Ling Muyang's face twitched. Testing. Alright, now the temper of this Tribulation Sword Master was completely tested. But who would have thought that this young man was so strong? So tough? This time Ling Muyang really couldn't back down. The 7 experts of the Ling clan gritted their teeth and glared at Ling Muyang. At this moment, as long as their ancestor gave the order, these 7 experts would rush up and fight with their lives. They didn't care if he was the Tribulation Sword Master, 2nd grade Supreme Martial Artist or Sword Master. They would kill him first. Ling Muyang pondered for a while, took a deep breath and said to Huang Xiaoyou calmly, it's my fault just now. I shouldn't have used my divine sense to suppress you. Please don't take it to heart. As soon as he said that, the eyes of the Ling clan's people turned red, and they almost cried. Huang Xiaoyou was stunned as if he was struck by lightning. Chapter 1629. Huang Xiaoyou was dumbfounded. My God, what did I just hear? Apologize to me? And who's the one who apologized to me? It's the old ancestor of the Ling clan. He's someone who stands at the peak of the world. He actually apologized to me personally. Huang Xiaoyou only felt that his nose was blocked. He actually choked with sobs and said, it's okay, it's okay. You're right. Ling Muyang nodded with a smile. There was no embarrassment on his face at this moment. He said softly, I've never bullied anyone in my life. The main purpose of doing this today is to test the character of the Tribulation Sword Master. However, I shouldn't have made use of others in the end. You don't have to take it to heart. The Sword Master is right. You can kill people but you can't look down on and insult people. This has always been a big taboo in the martial world. Many blood feuds that shouldn't have happened were all caused by this. The 7 supreme martial artists straightened their bodies and agreed at the same time. I've apologized but I still have to scold you. This is my advice as an old man. Ling Muyang frowned and looked at Huang Xiaoyou. You're so young but you don't think about making progress. You only know how to indulge in sensual pleasures. Look at your body, what has it become? Useless. You have good aptitude but why don't you know how to work hard? At this moment, the Tribulation Sword Master is by your side and treats you as a friend. When he's here he can protect you. But if he's not here, what will you do? He treats you as a friend, but how can his friend be like you? Think about it carefully. Ling Muyang scolded, get out now. Think carefully about what you should do in the future. Huang Xiaoyou took a deep breath and said respectfully, yes. Then he turned around and left respectfully. Ling Muyang's words were still full of impoliteness, but Chu Yang didn't get angry. Because this time, Ling Muyang was reprimanding, warning and comforting the younger generation as an experienced senior. His words were full of goodwill. After this incident, Huang Xiaoyou would probably understand something. If so, Chu Yang would be very gratified and happy. Outside the door, Huang Xiaoyou clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were full of tears. And he had infinite determination. I understand. Respect. I have to work hard to get it. Respect was, in fact, a scarce resource. Respect depended on one's strength. Just like what Ling Muyang had said, if Chu Yang wasn't here today, then what was he? Those people would feel disgusted just by looking at him. Because he failed to live up to expectations. What a disappointment. No strength at all. He relied on his family to be a good-for-nothing. At most, they would only hit the commoners. But in the eyes of a true powerhouse, it was not even worth a fart. Moreover, he would have to bear a lifetime of infamy. Perhaps I'll have to choose my future path again. Huang Xiaoyou murmured, Swordmaster Chu is such a strong person and Dong Wuxiang is such a hero. But I can still be a capable and ambitious Huang Xiaoyou. Tribulation Swordmaster's friend. You shouldn't be like me, at least not like the first half of my life. He turned around and walked out, his body trembling. However, his heart was burning like never before. He had never been so bright, high-spirited, and full of ambition as he was now. He would no longer have any complaints about what happened today. In fact, he would even rejoice. What happened today would be a lifelong regret. It was the biggest turning point of all. One day, I also want to be respected by others. Respect from the bottom of my heart. Tribulation Sword Master. You're indeed outstanding. You can look down on the universe and dominate the firmament. Ling Muyang leisurely sat down opposite Chu Yang. Chu Yang picked up the wine pot and poured him a cup of wine. He smiled and said, Elder, you're too polite. Elder's aura is fierce and powerful. I'm also amazed. Ah, well said, please. Ling Muyang picked up the wine cup and toasted Chu Yang. Then he drank it in one gulp. Chu Yang also drank it in one gulp at the same time. Then both of them made a gesture of showing the bottom of their cups at the same time. They laughed in unison. Showing the bottom of a cup was the etiquette on the table. It showed respect to the other party. Both of them also had the intention to join forces. Now that they were showing respect to each other, the atmosphere between both parties was peaceful. The state of mutual hostility just now had long since disappeared without a trace. It was as if nothing unpleasant had ever happened. Such a rapid change made Ling Hanxue, who was the only one standing at the side, confused. As for the other 7 high-level supreme martial artists at the door, they were even more at a loss. Ling Muyang, the ancestor of the Ling family, was forced to apologize. His face had been wiped clean by the master of the Calamity Sword. At this moment, the people of the Ling family were still angry, but they didn't expect that the 2 people involved were already fine. They talked and laughed and raised their cups to show their respect. What's going on? What's going on? Swordmaster, please forgive me. My actions just now were just to test you. Ling Muyang's sharp face showed a smile. He explained, since we've already found out who Swordmaster Chu is, no matter what method or other, we've already achieved our original goal. Since we've achieved our original goal, and I've indeed gone overboard, why can't I apologize? That's why I said that your tolerance is a little too narrow. It needs to be increased. Ling Muyang said slowly, tolerance is also included in the atmosphere of martial arts. It also involves the precision of one's state of mind and divine sense. It can't be insufficient. If it's insufficient, there'll be no hope for further improvement, and it'll be difficult for you to achieve great success. On the surface, the purpose of Ling Muyang's words was, of course, to explain to the few people in his clan. Moreover, it was also a warning. It was a warning that he had put almost everything on the surface. As for the other hidden meaning, it was an explanation to Chu Yang. The 7 people outside bowed at the same time. It was too rare to be able to receive personal guidance from the ancestor. The way Ling Muyang looked at Chu Yang was filled with unconcealed admiration. Ling Muyang was very satisfied with the result of the test just now. Chu Yang would rather break than bend, rather die than submit, and protect his friends at all costs. This also showed Chu Yang's persistence. Since Chu Yang was persistent, then everything could be discussed. There was a possibility of cooperation. Young Master Huang Xiaoyou had unknowingly become the opportunity for Tribulation Sword Master to cooperate with the big clans. The mysteries of the world could be seen. Elder Ling, your concealment is really deep, Chu Yang said with a smile. Oh? I've always done things openly and with a clear conscience. I've never played tricks. What concealment is there? Master Ling retorted without any trace of politeness. There was even a hint of reprimand in his tone. Elder Ling, you've misunderstood. What I meant by concealment was actually your cultivation. Chu Yang didn't seem to mind Elder Ling's tone at all. He continued, everyone knows that the Yi clan and the Shao clan are the strongest among the big clans. Yi Qinshan and Shao Qinyu are either number 1 or number 1 in their respective clans. This has long been recognized. As for the Ling clan, it's at best one of the big clans in terms of strength. But who would have thought that Elder Ling's real strength is actually number 1 among the big clans? Or, is this related to the tolerance that Elder Ling mentioned? Ling Muyang's eyes flashed. He said, oh, Swordmaster Chu's words are a little arbitrary. As far as I know, although you've dealt with Shao Qinyu, you've never met Yi Qinshan. How can you say that I'm superior to him? I'd like to ask you a question instead. How can you say that? Chu Yang smiled faintly. I have my own reasons to make such a judgment. Elder Ling has just pointed out my current cultivation and achievements. So, I will be presumptuous and guess your cultivation base. Okay, Ling Muyang smiled with interest. If I'm not wrong, Elder Ling is also a sword master. Chu Yang said, moreover, your current cultivation is already at the peak level. Although you've just entered the peak level, you've already stepped into the peak level after all. Take Shao Qinyu, whom I met a few days ago for example, there's already a gap between him and Elder Ling. I believe that Yi Qinshan is also at this level. How can someone at the same level compete with a sword master? With Elder strength, even if you're facing anyone from the Moon Breeze couple, you can also fight with them. Although you may be defeated in the end, it's not a problem for you to retreat unscathed. Chu Yang's words made Ling Hanxue and the 7 supreme martial artists of the Ling clan overjoyed. All along, in the ranking of the big clans, Ling Muyang had always been ranked behind Yi Qinshan and Shao Qinyu. At most he was only ranked 3rd. Moreover, everyone knew that his cultivation level stopped at the level of a lower supreme martial artist. Could it be that the Elder Master had actually made a new breakthrough in these years? And the level of Sword Master, if Chu Yang didn't say it, it would definitely be a fantasy. But if it was true, the Elder Master had hidden it a little too deeply. Sword Master has good eyesight. Ling Muyang's admission made the 8 people of the Ling clan beam with joy. About 3,000 years ago, this old man's cultivation was even lower than theirs. But now, I've already confirmed that I'm above them. Even their so-called bottleneck is no longer in my eyes. Ling Muyang said lightly, however, I don't want to compete on this, so I'm just going with the flow. Chu Yang nodded understandingly and said, elders of the big clans are about the same age, the years of cultivation are about the same, and their cultivations are also about the same. Although there's always a difference in strength, no one can reach the peak level of supreme martial artist. I believe that the reason why Elder Ling can reach this level should have a lot to do with the magnanimity that you mentioned just now, right? Ling Muyang raised his head and looked deeply at Chu Yang. Finally he smiled. What a powerful tribulation sword master. Yes, it's indeed related to the magnanimity that I mentioned. But there's also another reason. Chapter 1630. Yes. Actually, I've mentioned it before, but Sword Master Chu may not have paid attention to it. Ling Muyang took a deep breath and said, this old man has been roaming the pugilistic world. Although I have gone through tens of thousands of battles and killed countless people, no matter what it is, this old man has a clear conscience. It's just this state of mind. It's not that I want to boast, but in the whole heavens, very few people can compare to me. Even Ning Qinya, Bu Luqing and Feng Yu may not be as good as me in this aspect. Ling Muyang smiled and said in a deep voice, I see. Elder Ling is so magnanimous. Chu Yang let out a long breath and said seriously, I'm really grateful and impressed. You're welcome. Chu Yang said seriously. Ling Muyang's answer was also very serious. Because he knew that Chu Yang had already understood something. Or rather, Chu Yang had comprehended something from his words. Elder Ling's purpose for coming here this time should be for the extraterrestrial demons, right? Chu Yang thought for a while and went straight to the point. This time Ling Muyang came here to seek cooperation. But it was not good for either of them to say this. The one who spoke first would inevitably lose the upper hand in terms of momentum and would lose the initiative. Moreover, this topic was a little too heavy. No matter who brought it up first, it would feel inappropriate. Seeing Ling Muyang in a difficult position, Chu Yang decided to make it clear. Sooner or later he would have to say it. Actions were better than passivity. Sure enough, as soon as he said this, Ling Muyang's body suddenly froze. The breathing of Ling Han Shui and the 7 experts of the Ling family also suddenly became heavy. Extraterrestrial demons? Ling Muyang's face became unusually serious. He let out a long sigh. For a moment even the air seemed to have stagnated. This world has changed. Ling Muyang sighed deeply after a long time. I can't differentiate what's right and what's wrong, Chu Yang said. Oh? Elder Ling's words are beyond my expectations. Please explain. Sai, last night I got up and walked along the north of the capital. On the way I met 2 law enforcement experts. Ling Muyang said seriously, these 2 people were originally acquainted with me and our relationship was quite good. They belonged to the law enforcement hall. Chu Yang didn't say anything. But in his heart he was guessing. He probably went there specifically to look for it, right? Otherwise, how could he have met 2 law enforcement experts so coincidentally? Furthermore, they were old acquaintances who were on good terms with each other. After everyone chatted for a while, the 2 of them directly advised me to leave the big families and rule the world together with the law enforcers. They were willing to do it for me. Even the entire Ling family can vouch for it. Ling Muyang smiled bitterly and shook his head. I only said one thing. Dharma Supreme, are you an extraterrestrial demon? At this point, Ling Muyang's tone became very strange, as if he was very sad and helpless. It was also very melancholic. Chu Yang took a deep breath and asked, what did they say? Ling Muyang paused and smiled bitterly. What do you mean? He might as well tell them how he did it. The 2 of them immediately flew into a rage and only said one sentence. Your great clans are the real heavenly demons. You brazenly made a move to try and keep me there. Speaking of which, the strength of those 2 people is still a distance away from mine. After a bitter battle, they have already used their full strength. You still can't do anything to me. I originally thought that they were just persuaded by the Dharma Supreme and weren't really accomplices. Just as he was about to leave, he didn't expect the 2 of them to suddenly change their tactics. Black chi rose from their bodies and it was actually an extremely evil power. This old man can determine that it was heavenly demonic chi. Although that aura wasn't very strong, it was essentially the same as the day when the sky turned dark and the heavenly demon injury left on Shi Paoxiao. After Ling Muyang finished speaking, he took a few deep breaths. It was obvious how shocked he was. I think Elder Ling is very shocked. Originally, there were only the Dharma Supreme and heavenly demons, but now, even many ordinary people of the heavenly layer have been demonized? Chu Yang pondered and said in a low voice. Yes. Moreover, the speed and scope of demonization is quite fast. Ling Muyang was very worried. How many days has it been since the Dharma Supreme issued the summon order? The cultivation of those 2 people are only 2nd-grade supreme martial artists. If even they have been demonized, then how many law enforcement officers have been demonized? How was that battle? Chu Yang asked. I had no choice but to kill them. Ling Muyang's mood was obviously very gloomy. It didn't feel good to be forced to kill one's best friend. However, those 2 people had already become demons. They had to be killed. Chu Yang sighed deeply. Big clans, didn't you try to spread the news that the Dharma Supreme is a heavenly demon? Ling Muyang smiled bitterly. What do you think? Do you dare? Chu Yang said, are you afraid that once you spread the news, you will become the enemy of all law enforcement officers in the world? Of course. Ling Muyang said, the law enforcement officers have followed the Dharma Supreme for more than 10,000 years. Do they choose to believe the Dharma Supreme or us? Anyone can imagine the result of this choice. Chu Yang sneered. But if you don't say it, won't you still become the enemy of all law enforcement officers in the world? Ling Muyang was stunned. You said that the Dharma Supreme will take the opportunity to attack the big clans. You said that you colluded with the heavenly demon and have become his puppets or something. But if you don't say it, won't the Dharma Supreme use this reason to spread the news? Your lack of action, can it be understood that you have a guilty conscience and you have silently agreed to it? Chu Yang's words made Ling Muyang completely stunned. Yes, no matter whether they did it or not, or how they did it, the Dharma Supreme would do his best to push this matter. Had the big clans already taken the wrong first step in this matter? After being stunned for a while, Old Master Ling said bitterly, we thought that becoming a heavenly demon is, after all, a difficult thing to talk about. The Dharma Supreme would at least hide something, right? As long as he doesn't make the situation worse, we can instead make use of this opportunity. After all, the implications of this matter are too great. What a ridiculous argument. Chu Yang was speechless. The Dharma Supreme is already the successor of the heavenly demon, why would he be afraid of making the situation worse? Not to mention anything else, this is already the final battle. Since he has already chosen to become a demon, he is destined to be incompatible with the world. What else is there to worry about? Ling Muyang's face was grim. Then what should we do now? Chuyang shook his head. Let's wait and see. My brothers have already gone to handle this matter. We must let everyone know that the Dharma Supreme is the heavenly demon. In this way, maybe some law enforcement officers will be more vigilant and not be bewitched by him to become a demon and become a force on our side. If we do as you all think and keep everything a secret, then the Dharma Supreme can easily turn all law enforcement officers into heavenly demons. In the end, it won't be limited to law enforcement officers, but all martial artists in the world, or even everyone in the world. Then we are really done for. Tribulation has already started to take action? That's good, that's good. A big drop of cold sweat dripped from Ling Muyang's forehead. He turned and looked around. Indeed, there were no more high-level supreme martial artists around. He was slightly relieved. Like all the heaven-level people, although the big clans had always been enemies with the Tribulation Swordmaster and couldn't wait to get rid of Tribulation's brothers, if they were on the same side as Tribulation for some reason, then they would have full confidence in Tribulation. Because Tribulation himself already symbolized invincibility, symbolized heaven's will, symbolized invincibility. Even if Tribulation was much younger than them, it was still the same. Don't be too optimistic. Even if we make up for it now. But according to the information you said earlier, I reckon that the high-level power of the law enforcement officers should have been completely destroyed by now. How would the Dharma Supreme let go of this batch of powerful helpers? Chuyang sighed deeply. After this battle, I'm afraid, there will be less than 1 out of 100 supreme martial artists left in the heaven. The vitality of the entire heaven level will definitely be completely depleted. You mean, this battle will be a huge collision between all the martial artists and law enforcement officers in the world? Ling Muyang said with a glimmer of hope. It's not to that extent. Although there are also scums among the law enforcement officers and even quite a few of them, generally speaking, there are still more righteous people. Can people who have been demonized still talk about righteousness? Chuyang snorted. Ling Muyang was silent for a long time. The expression on his face became sadder and sadder. He said sadly, it's just a pity for those heroes. Many of them have contributed their whole lives to the heaven level. They have been righteous and impartial all their lives, benefiting the world and protecting the common people. Could it be that their final ending is to be buried with shame, with the title of heavenly demon puppets and lackeys? That's too sad. Chuyang was silent for a long time. Then he said in a deep voice, Elder Ling is right. In fact, my biggest concern now is also precisely this. We are not afraid of killing people, but if we kill these people, our hearts will really feel uncomfortable. Just like what Elder Ling said, if we feel guilty, how can we unleash our full strength? These people are, after all, in the traditional sense, good people. But if we don't kill them, they have now become demonic seeds. They will definitely turn the world upside down and cause endless harm. Even if we don't kill them, we will die in their hands. This matter is really a dilemma. Ling Muyang sighed sadly. He lowered his head and suddenly grabbed a wine cup. He drank it all in one gulp, then filled it up again, drank it up again and filled it up again. On his lowered head, the silvery white hair seemed to have dimmed in an instant. It was as if he had aged a few hundred years at this moment. Bang! Ling Muyang slammed his palm on the table. With a crash, the entire table was completely smashed into pieces. Chapter 1631. Ling Muyang's beard stood up. Suddenly, tears streamed down his face as he said hoarsely, These law enforcement officers are all unyielding heroes. They have already sacrificed their entire lives for the sake of justice. Even if it's unavoidable for a warrior to die on the battlefield, and a general will die in battle sooner or later, he shouldn't have to bear a humiliating name, and bury his lifelong reputation and pride in the demonic aura of the heavenly demon. Ling Muyang looked up to the sky and roared, Dharma Supreme! Dharma Supreme! You damn scum, how could you do it? How could you do such a heartless thing? Everyone lowered their heads in dejection. In the biting cold wind, only Ling Muyang's hoarse and extremely sorrowful voice could be heard, Dharma Supreme! Dongfang Badeo! Fuck you! Fuck your ancestors! Everyone's heart was shaken from the bottom of their hearts. At this moment, listening to such an extremely rude curse, not only did they not feel any disdain, they even had the urge to cry. Ling Muyang had been upright and plain-spoken all his life. He had a clear conscience and rarely even reprimanded others. If he saw someone he didn't like, he would directly kill them. When had he ever scolded someone in such an obscene manner? Baidu search to see the latest chapter. Not to mention insulting the other party's mother in such a frenzied manner. But now, the Dharma Supreme's derangement made this heroic old man really couldn't help but curse. Elder Ling, you have scolded the wrong person this time. The Dharma Supreme is not that Dongfang Badeo. The ancestors of the Dongfang clan have suffered an undeserved calamity, Chuyang said quietly. Ling Muyang suddenly turned his head. Swordmaster, what do you mean? The Dongfang Badeo of the past is long dead. Chuyang took a deep breath. The one who is now living with the face and name of Dongfang Badeo is actually another person. Chuyang laughed mockingly. Speaking of which, this person is a universally recognized hero from tens of thousands of years ago. Oh. Ling Muyang shouted, a hero? Such a bastard. What kind of hero is he? Who is he? How can he bear the word hero? Diwu Chochang. Chuyang revealed the mystery, and then let out a sneer that could be either mockery or pity. He said, he used to be one of the tribulations and also used to overturn the world. Think tank. I don't know if this person is worthy of the word hero? Crack. The chair under Ling Muyang's legs. The energy's body, and its bodies is. Muyang's he's his. He murmured, it's him? How is this? How is this? On the side. Ling's eyes of hers, s's, slash they thereof and there come, of God of us the Dharma Supreme Dongfang Badeo, was actually one of the tribulations think tank Diwu Chochang. This was of course shocking. But what really made the Ling clan so shocked and in disbelief was something else. Since Diwu Chochang was still alive then. The tribulations of the Ling clan, was it? Sure enough, Ling Muyang suddenly burst into tears. He asked in a trembling voice, if that's the case. If that's the case, then is my father, also? At this moment Ling Muyang had completely thrown the matter of the Dharma Supreme aside. The previous generations of tribulations all disappeared mysteriously. This was not a secret. Almost all the brothers of tribulations disappeared after the continent was unified. No one knew where they went. Many years had passed. Everyone also gave up. They thought that they were dead, except for Wu Jueqing, who was the only exception. In the past, it wasn't as if there hadn't been people from big clans who had approached Wu Jueqing and asked him about their tribulation ancestor. However, what they got in return was usually a massacre, an extremely bloody and furious massacre. Over time, no clan, force or organization asked about this taboo topic anymore. But today there was another tribulations who was still alive, Diwu Chochang. There might be one or two. There might be 3 or 4, for a moment. All of Ling Muyang's thoughts were gathered here. Since there are people of tribulations, they are still alive. Then, my father, Chuyang said in a low voice, Elder Ling, your father, and the few tribulations of your big clans are very likely to still be alive. Although they are no longer in this world, but there is indeed a very high chance that they are still alive. This is a fact that is set in stone. There is no need to doubt it. Ling Muyang only heard the words very likely to still be alive. Then he felt a boom in his head and couldn't hear anything else. He didn't hear a single word that Chuyang said after that. Only tears fell down his cheeks. Father, you are actually still alive. Ling Muyang felt sorrow from the bottom of his heart. It had been more than 10,000 years since he last saw his father. He had been strong and stubborn all this while, until he himself became a tribulations ancestor and a top expert in the world, a legend worshipped by the world. But at this moment, when he heard news of his father, he still couldn't help but feel agitated. At this moment he was no longer a tribulations ancestor. He was just a child who longed for his father's love. That was all. The more Ling Muyang tried to control his emotions, the more tears fell. In the end he didn't even try to control them. He let the emotions that had been suppressed for more than 10,000 years be released to his heart's content. With white hair and white beard he cried loudly. Infected by his true feelings, Chuyang couldn't help but feel a lump in his throat. He could only turn his head and control his emotions. Who wouldn't be moved by such a display of true feelings after coming back from death's door? Ling Hanxue, who was at the side, was already in tears. Swordmaster Chu, my father, where is he now? After a long time, Ling Muyang stopped crying and asked in a nasal voice. He is now in outer space fighting with the extraterrestrial demons. This is also the reason why I said that he might still be alive. The previous tribulations were all like this. Chu Yang said deeply, but, if your own strength isn't enough, I advise you not to look for him. Firstly, if your cultivation isn't enough, you can't reach there. Even if you can reach there with some special means, you can only be killed by the extraterrestrial demons. You can't even see his face. Isn't that an injustice? Fighting with the extraterrestrial demons in outer space. Ling Muyang murmured. The light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. Suddenly he shouted, "Kill all the extraterrestrial demons. Father is mighty." He suddenly turned his head and looked at Chu Yang. I believe that Sword Master won't lie to me about this. In this case, in this battle of the heavens, we can't win. We must win and must not lose. Chu Yang nodded calmly. Yes, we must win and must not lose. If that's the case, how should we cooperate? Please tell me, Sword Master, Ling Muyang said coldly. Chu Yang sighed and said, now that things have come to this, we can only do this, Chu Yang said. Ling Muyang nodded. The two spoke very softly. Ling Hanxue and the others didn't dare to eavesdrop because of their identities. They only saw one talking and the other nodding. The two cooperated seamlessly. As for whether there are clans that are disloyal, Ling Muyang stammered. It wasn't that he thought too much, but that there were definitely such situations. There must be. There was no doubt. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. A gloomy murderous aura suddenly rose. Ling Hanxue, who was standing at the side, shuddered. When this tribulation sword master released his murderous intent, it was even stronger than that of those old killers. After a long time, both sides had settled their matters. Ling Muyang proposed to leave. When he reached the door, he suddenly stopped and said, then, about my father and the others, can I? Chu Yang said, you can tell them. Before the big battle, we also need to raise our morale. Ling Muyang nodded happily. Then he said hesitantly, since the Dharma Supreme was once the brains of the Tribulation Sword Master Diwu Chouchang, then the current Diwu clan, Chu Yang said seriously, according to my understanding of Diwu Qingru shouldn't do something that goes against his conscience and embarrasses him for 10,000 years. However, we still have to be careful. There's no harm in being careful. Ling Muyang nodded. In this case, I'll take my leave. I'll go back immediately and tell everyone this good news. Chu Yang said, okay. Both sides cupped their hands and bade farewell. When Ling Muyang was 100 feet away, he suddenly stopped and turned around. He said in a low voice, Sword Master Chu, thank you for today's matter. Ling Muyang had already left, but Chu Yang's heart was heavy and didn't feel relieved. He was thinking about those law enforcement officers who were righteous and selfless all their lives and sacrificed everything for the heavens. Now, those people were all plotted against by the Dharma Supreme and became heavenly demons. What should he do about these people? Kill them? He couldn't bear to. If he didn't kill them, there would be endless trouble. Chu Yang's heart was in a mess and he couldn't make a decision. In a daze, Chu Yang suddenly thought of the Medicine Valley at the medicine banquet. He couldn't help but sigh. He murmured, I worked hard all my life and practiced medicine to be the god of medicine. I'd rather die in the valley in exchange for the spring of the heavens. Mending the heavens several times was difficult. My merits are unheard of. I can't rest in peace today. Who will pity the world from now on? If good people have bad luck, who will dare to be a good person from now on? Chu Yang raised his head and looked at the void in front of him. He murmured repeatedly, if good people don't have good karma, who will dare to be a good person from now on? These law enforcement officers have been famous all their lives, but they became heavenly demons. I have to kill them. Is it really true that good people don't have good karma? Must I really kill them? Is there any other way? Chu Yang frowned and thought hard. He frowned for a long time. They had become heavenly demons and had been demonized. What other way was there to remove them? In the tribulation space, the sword spirit sighed. There's no other way. Chu Yang was silent. Chapter 1632. There was a hubbub of voices as if it was about to explode. There were still too many people pouring in, and there were still countless people being killed at any moment. There were still countless corpse-dissolving powder being thrown out. The surrounding 8 directions had almost become a boiling sea, getting more and more intense, squeezing in from the central core. That was the chaotic crowd caused by GMO, Gu Duxing and the others spreading the rumor that the Dharma Supreme was a heavenly demon. It was one thing whether one believed it or not, and one had to believe it. This thing couldn't be forced, but as long as the rumor was spread out at a certain time, everyone would realize, this might be true. This might be true. This might be true. This might be true. There were constant sounds of fighting, and it was the Tribulation brothers fighting openly with the law enforcement officers. How much does the capital occupy? Chuyang asked quietly. It's not that big. But the total living space of tens of millions of people, at most 3 or 4 times more, and it would be full. Chuyang asked and answered his own question. But the number of outsiders now has far exceeded this number. So there should be a similar scene in the surroundings. Then, if we count all the people attracted by the Tianding Grand Meeting this time, it should be close to 100 million. Inferring from this, almost all the experts in the entire heavenly layer have already gathered here. The martial artists who didn't come, less than 1 in 100, or perhaps less than 1 in 1,000? Chuyang took a deep breath and said to himself, could it be that it's really heaven's will, or that the higher-ups want to use this opportunity to reshuffle the heavenly layer? Thinking of this, Chuyang suddenly shuddered. He thought of one thing. In other planes, martial artists at the level of supreme martial artist could already ascend and enter the heavenly layer. But in this heavenly layer, they needed to at least reach the peak of the supreme martial artist level, and only by chance and coincidence could they go further. Exceptions? Why were there exceptions? Would the exceptions be quelled? Chuyang shook his head. Chuyang forbade himself from thinking further. Thinking about this now was not beneficial to the big picture. Let's talk about it later. In the room. Mo Chinji sat cross-legged, and the copper coin floated in the void in front of him. It spun slowly and spontaneously. It emitted a dazzling light. As it spun, mysterious runes appeared in the void one after another before disappearing abruptly. There was a small bottle in front of Mo Tianji. Inside each of the small bottles, there was a drop of blood on each of them, bright red and dazzling. It was unknown what method was used, but it didn't congeal at all. Mo Tianji naturally sensed Ling Muyang's arrival earlier. He believed that Chuyang would be able to handle it. So he didn't plan to show himself. It was also because he was doing something more important. The book of Mastering the Divine Arts of the World contained an exceptionally strange mental cultivation method. It was activated by the cultivator to extract a drop of blood essence from others. Then, with the blood of the cultivator's heart as a guide, within a certain period of time, they would be able to connect with each other. Mo Tianji was still worried about the safety of his brothers. So, he did not hesitate to consume a lot of his cultivation to use this strange technique in order to ensure the safety of his brothers. The copper coin in front of him spun. Although the spinning speed was very slow, it gradually pulled out after images. As more and more illusory figures appeared, the scene became more and more realistic. It was a hazy scene. Gradually, the land of golden light revealed a trace of blood color. Gradually, the clear and weak sound of a heartbeat could be heard from the illusory figure. Thump thump. Thump. Mo Tianji groaned and put a heavy pill into his mouth. Then he held the saber in his left hand and cut open his chest. In the wound, a heart was beating powerfully. Cold sweat trickled down Mo Tianji's face. However, his hand was extremely stable and there was no trace of hesitation. With a light wave of the saber, the skin of his heart was pierced. A drop of blood instantly appeared. With a flick of the saber, the drop of blood flew out of his chest. At the same time, Mo Tianji raised his head and the heavy pill in his mouth entered his throat. There was no time to hesitate. His heart was damaged and his life was in danger. If Mo Tianji didn't have the complete version of the heavy pill in his hand, he might not have dared to try such a risky method. With a wave of his right hand, the small vial in front of him shattered. The drop of blood inside flew into the air with a whoosh. It surrounded the drop of blood in Mo Tianji's heart and formed the shape of a heart. The golden light shone brightly and dazzlingly. Mo Tianji spat out another mouthful of blood. Done. The 10 copper coins froze in the air at the same time. An illusory heart was formed at the same time. Then a total of 10 drops of blood slowly merged into the void. The copper coins fell back into Mo Tianji's hand one by one. Mo Tianji's face revealed a trace of a smile. The wound in his chest was already slowly healing. With a whoosh, the void regained its endless clarity. But at the same time, Chuyang, who was sitting downstairs, and Mo Qingwu, Gudu Xing Dong Wushang, and the others who were busy fighting in all directions felt a strange feeling at the same time. At the same time, Mo Tianji's voice sounded in their hearts simultaneously. Everyone, don't be surprised. From now on, within 60 hours, if you want to talk to your brothers, just say it in your heart. Everyone will definitely hear it. If you encounter danger, don't try to be brave. Ask for help from your brothers who are closer at any time. Understand? Don't take risks. Protect yourself first. Chu Yang couldn't help but be shocked when he heard this message. In the end, Mo Tianji still used this forbidden technique. To Mo Tianji, such a method would cause great harm to himself. He had discussed it with Chu Yang before, but Chu Yang had sternly rejected it. He had even used vehement words to forbid Mo Tianji from using such a method. Yet, Mo Tianji had actually done it silently. This made Chu Yang have an impulse to hold Mo Tianji down and give him a good beating. This guy really doesn't cherish himself. But at the same time he also felt deeply moved. Mo Tianji was really willing to do anything for his brothers. At this moment Chu Yang stopped. Someone said in his heart, "Really?" It was Mo Qingwu's voice. Another person said, "So it's true. I really heard Qingwu speak." The one who spoke was Xie Danxiong. Then a glib-tongued voice called out, "It's actually true? There's such a thing? Let me try too." Second brother Gu, second brother Gu, second brother Gu Waha. Gu Duxing, who was fighting in the north, was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He gritted his teeth and said in his heart, "GMO, let me tell you, you're dead for sure. Wait for me." The others all had smiles on their faces. They were all overjoyed. This made their opponents very puzzled. In such an intense battle, how could they be so happy from the bottom of their hearts? Are these people crazy? Could it be that I'm actually fighting with someone crazy? At this moment in the entire capital there were 8 people. Someone released the same news. The Dharma Supreme. He's the extraterrestrial demon. Everyone please be careful. The Dharma Supreme is actually the extraterrestrial demon. The extraterrestrial demon's goal is to enslave the entire heavenly continent and turn it into their base camp. Therefore, the extraterrestrial demon's primary target for demonization has fallen on the Dharma Supreme, who was once the #1 person in the continent. It's a collective demonization from top to bottom. If everyone doesn't resist, then the extraterrestrial demon will use an inhumane method to completely change you. Even you will become a vassal of the demon race. Moreover, you won't be able to reincarnate. Now is the time when the heavenly continent's survival is at stake. If everyone doesn't want to become a demon, then fight with the Dharma Supreme. Fight to the death with the extraterrestrial demon who bewitches all living beings. The extraterrestrial demon feeds on humans and is extremely evil. The Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon. God knows how many people he has eaten all these years. Fellow law enforcement officers, the Dharma Supreme is really the extraterrestrial demon. We are all people of the heavenly continent. We should join hands and fight against the extraterrestrial demon. I hope that all of you can quickly turn over a new leaf and not be bewitched by the Dharma Supreme, this extraterrestrial demon puppet. All kinds of comments were endless and could be said to be in full swing. There were all kinds of theories. Those who didn't know the truth were all perplexed. Is it true? Is it true? If it's true, then it's too scary. This news is really... The Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon. These people really dare to say it? Whether it's true or not, we have to be more careful. What if it's true? Could the Dharma Supreme really be the extraterrestrial demon? It can't be. As for the other group of people, they were filled with righteous indignation. The Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon? Go and eat shit. You're the extraterrestrial demon, your whole family are extraterrestrial demons. Who dares to slander the Dharma Supreme? You're courting death. Kill these **stards who are spreading lies to mislead people. They are the real extraterrestrial demon puppets who can bewitch people. The extraterrestrial demon is stirring up internal strife. Kill them. Go. Don't let them continue to slander the Dharma Supreme. Is the Dharma Supreme's reputation something they can ruin? So they all attacked. There were also law enforcement officers who were mixed in the crowd. After hearing such comments, they attacked Gu Duxing and the others without hesitation. Anyone who spoke ill of the Dharma Supreme was an enemy. This concept had long been deeply ingrained in their hearts and minds. Gu Duxing and the others followed Mo Tianji's and Chu Yang's arrangements. They weren't afraid of making a big deal out of things. Instead, the bigger the situation, the better. They accepted the challenge without hesitation. With their current combat power, in the current environment, they were absolutely invincible. Even if the other party outnumbered them by tens or hundreds of times, it was of no use. They were just looking for a one-sided beating. For a moment, the 8 sides were locked in a fierce battle. Gradually, more voices could be heard. This is Tribulation. An excited voice sounded. It's the Tribulation Swordmaster's brother Tribulation. This voice was like a sudden clap of thunder. Chapter 4 today, Chapter 13. I took leave last month and owed 7 chapters. I'll make up for it in double. 14 chapters. It's finally coming to an end. Chapter 1633. This is the Tribulation brother of the Tribulation Sword Master. They also said that the Dharma Supreme is an extraterrestrial demon? Then, maybe it's not slander. What kind of person is the Tribulation Sword Master? How can he simply frame others? That's true. Some time ago the Dharma Supreme also said that Chu Yang is an extraterrestrial demon and even personally gave the order. Now we know that Chu Yang is the Tribulation Sword Master. Now the situation is reversed. The Tribulation Sword Master said that the Dharma Supreme is an extraterrestrial demon. Indeed, how can the Tribulation Sword Master be an extraterrestrial demon? Since the Dharma Supreme is lying, then the situation is obvious. Why did he lie? Because he's guilty. Why is he guilty? He's an extraterrestrial demon. How can he not be guilty? He can only bite back. The new public opinion was almost one-sided in favor of Chu Yang's side. This was, of course, the people of the big clans who reacted after the chaos and began to cooperate with Gu Duxing and the rest. Baidu searched to see the latest chapter. Once such a statement came out and the argument was one-sided, it instantly turned the whole world upside down. It was already about to turn the world upside down, but now it really did. Tribulation had always been a legendary existence. In today's world, who had seen it with their own eyes? Now it really appeared in front of them. This kind of shock was simply unparalleled. Wow. Wow wow. Tribulation. Oh my God, my God. This is the legendary Tribulation. No wonder he has such powerful skills at such a young age. This matter is really confusing. So handsome. So this is the legend of Tribulation. So handsome. Boo-hoo, I must marry him. This was a love-struck girl. This gay with this face of yours? Why don't you take a look at yourself in the mirror? You can only find someone like me. Get lost. Go to hell. How can Tribulation lie? Even Tribulation said that the Dharma Supreme is an extraterrestrial demon. There must be a reason. Yes, yes. Everyone be careful. Mo Qingwu's red clothes fluttered in the northeast direction. Her dreaming of a gentle dance, saber flickered with a dreamlike luster. Her figure looked like a dancing fairy. But it brought out a dreamlike murderous intention. In front of and behind her. It was full of blood. On Mo Qingwu's face. There was a strong sense of reluctance, but he didn't show any mercy. Lass, when facing an enemy, if you can kill them, then kill them as soon as possible. At the very least, he had to immobilize him. Don't hesitate. These were the words of second brother Mo Tianji. Don't forget that you're not alone. Qingwu, I only have one thing to say to you. The only enemy that poses no threat is a dead man. He had to protect himself well. If you get hurt again, then I can only follow you. These were Chu Yang's words. I will never let Chu Yang bear this burden for the rest of my life. This was Mo Qingwu's warning to herself. I want to be his helper. I don't want to be his burden. Never. In the north, Gu Duxing and his sword were unstoppable. The Lone Ranger was dressed in black and had a cold expression on his face. The black dragon sword danced in the air. The blood-red light under the sword was like brilliant peonies. Just as they were about to bloom, they suddenly encountered a warm spring breeze and bloomed one after another. A few killers who had charged forward madly could only see figures flying forward. Then, at an even faster speed, their heads flew off from their necks. One by one, the corpses fell to the ground like wooden stakes. Gu Duxing attacked. He attacked. Fast, accurate, steady and ruthless. Sure hit. Sure death. There wasn't any nonsense at all. Gu Duxing gave a sword strike to anyone who didn't accept the previous remarks and pointed their swords at him. There was no turning back from this sword strike and he set off for the Yellow Springs. It was only when he had just arrived here that he chose to say some words of advice when there were many people around. Since then, second old Master Gu had never opened his mouth again. He started to face challenges with a straight face just like a cold-faced killer. No, he was actually a cold-faced killer. And a super one at that. Because this guy seemed to be even more agile than the most professional killer. Every strike of his did not miss. Even when someone shouted out Tribulation's identity later on, Gu Duxing's expression did not change at all. His gaze did not change at all. Anyone who dared to charge forward was killed mercilessly. There were no exceptions. He was like a piece of ice from hell. Cold and merciless. Wherever he went, he would bring about a massacre. At this location, at this time, whether it was the law enforcement officers or the big clans, both sides were accumulating their own strength. They would not send super experts here to join in the fun. Therefore, Gu Duxing was like a dragon returning to the sea or a tiger returning to the deep mountains. He moved back and forth in the crowd without feeling threatened at all. Speaking of which, there were not many people in the world who could be a match for the sword supremacy, who was already a supreme martial artist. How could someone with such skills appear in this kind of situation? This cold-faced killer's appearance and Gu Duxing's handsome appearance immediately made the hearts of many young women in the martial world ripple. Of course, Gu Duxing himself would not feel anything. It seemed to be the same for the young women. So cool. So handsome. If I can marry him, I will not only have to spend a night with him. This was a young woman in love. He looks very strong. I don't know, is tribulation so strong? He's so charming. This was the thought of some young women. If Gu Duxing heard these words, he would definitely spit out a mouthful of blood and then ruthlessly destroy these few women. In the northwest, Dong Wuxiang held his dark saber and walked forward in big strides. Behind him, no one was standing. And this was also the path that the law enforcement officers had to pass through. There were especially many law enforcement officers and law enforcement officers gathered here who were extremely loyal. After Dong Wuxiang spread the news, he naturally received the most attacks and was the most intense. In fact, it was very inappropriate to say that Dong Wuxiang spread the news because at the beginning, Dong Wuxiang did not even open his mouth. It was indeed convenient to bring a wife along. Emole, very consciously did all these things. Did you still dare to expect Dong Wuxiang to explain to the crowd? As for when someone started to attack Emole, Dong Wuxiang straightened his neck and took out his dark saber from the space ring, dragging the saber. Swaggering in front of his wife like this, he was the perfect example of one man guarding the pass against 10,000 people. It was not surprising that Dong Wuxiang had a space ring. When Chu Yang came out from the City of Elves, the first thing he did was to give each of his brothers a space ring. Even Emole, was given one. The main material of these space rings was naturally the hundreds of thousands of years old starwood. Compared to an ordinary spatial tool, it was much stronger. It was completely incomparable. Everyone liked it very much. Dong Wuxiang did not hide anything at all at this moment. Instantly, he drew his saber and showed it in a dignified manner, causing an even bigger commotion. The eyes of some people who originally did not want to make a move were now red. That guy actually has a space treasure in his hands. How is that possible? That thing is mine. Only I am worthy of such a treasure. Snatch it. Bring it to me. Instantly, most of the people who were originally watching by the side also rushed over. All of them were filled with righteous indignation, as if Dong Wuxiang had done something unpardonable. Little, you actually dare to insult the Dharma Supreme. Go and die. You even dare to slander the Dharma Supreme. Kill him. Kill this guy who slandered the Dharma Supreme. A group of people rushed up, fearing that the magical space treasure would be taken away by others. They actually reached Dong Wuxiang faster than those law enforcement officers who were bent on avenging the Dharma Supreme. Dong Wuxiang's eyes flashed and he took a step forward. Instantly, it was as if a cloud-like mountain suddenly moved forward. A majestic and vigorous aura was suddenly released. Just this move alone made the people in front of him almost unable to breathe. Dong Wuxiang raised his saber. He shouted, "Come at me." This shout was like a sudden clap of thunder that could shake thousands of mountains and valleys in a quiet and clear sky. Even the 7th grade supreme martial artist Emole, behind him covered her ears. It was really too shocking. One of the guys saw that the treasure eye had opened, and used all his strength to get close to Dong Wuxiang. He had just gotten close to Dong Wuxiang when he was stopped by a loud shout. The ferocious look on his face hadn't disappeared in time, and his body had already stiffened. He stared blankly at Dong Wuxiang, and then blood suddenly gushed out from his 7 orifices. His entire body softly fell to the ground. After twitching for a while, he completely stopped moving. He was actually killed by Dong Wuxiang's shout. The guy who was killed by the shout just now was also not an ordinary person. He was a martial monarch expert. Although this level of expert was no longer worthy of the present tribulation eye, it was still a relatively high level for secular martial artists. And the power of Dong Wuxiang's shout was actually this powerful. He directly killed a martial monarch expert. Dong Wuxiang's roar was still echoing. He strode forward with big steps. An aura of no return and an army of thousands of soldiers rose spontaneously. His target was only in front, but there was actually no one on the left or right who dared to take a step forward. The few people who had just pounced forward were inexplicably shocked, but their bodies were still in the posture of pouncing forward. It was already too late for them to retreat. Everyone's expression changed drastically. The black saber in Dong Wuxiang's hand slashed down like lightning. Poof poof. Pieces of corpses were neatly separated to the two sides. In an instant, blood soared into the sky. The moment Dong Wuxiang attacked, it was like purgatory on earth. There was only endless blood in sight. He stepped on the splattered blood and strode forward. His gaze was focused and his expression was calm. His moves were very simple slashes and sweeps, but there was no one who could block his saber at all. With one slash, weapons disintegrated, arms broken, heads split, and bodies separated. The next moment, two pieces of corpses flew out cleanly in two different directions. All the opponents were the same without exception. Step by step, he strode forward without any pause. One man and one saber, no one could stop him. Chapter 1634. Emole followed behind Dong Wuxiang, her black clothes fluttering in the wind, as if she was taking a leisurely stroll. With Dong Wuxiang around, there was really no room for Emole to make a move. Dong Wuxiang's aura had already protected his wife tightly. Anyone who came from the front would be dealt with a single slash. If someone came from the back, fine, just one slash and the saber chi would disperse and the person would be dismembered on the spot. Following that would be the suppression of divine sense and the person's body and soul would be destroyed. Discussions about the tribulation finally started. Dong Wuxiang's side had already cleared the area. There was no other reason other than the environment at Dong Wuxiang's side was a little too bloody. The ground was stained with blood and flesh. Dong Wuxiang's majestic figure stood at the center, his tiger-like eyes sweeping across the faces of the surrounding people expressionlessly. Intimidated by his domineering aura, everyone who met his eyes couldn't help but look away. No one dared to meet his gaze. It was dead silent. Only the fresh blood from Dong Wuxiang's saber dripped onto the ground. For a moment, the thousands of people around actually didn't dare to breathe loudly. It was really too bloody and too shocking. With a poof, Dong Wuxiang stabbed the black saber in his hand into the ground. Instantly, a circle of dust rose from the ground and rolled towards the surroundings. With one hand on the saber and the other on his waist, he shouted in a deep voice, "The Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon. This is what I said. Who says he isn't? Stand out." This shout made everyone around him take a step back in unison. At this moment, who still dared to say no? Perhaps there were still diehard loyalists, but compared to immediately losing their lives if they denied it, these loyalists were smart enough to keep their mouths shut. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. As for the other fence-sitters, their reactions were the same. Yes, 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 the Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon. If you say so, then so be it. Yes, 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 if you say he is the extraterrestrial demon, then he must be. He must be, he must be. If you say he is, then he is. If he isn't, then so be it. Oh, I was scared to death. Ha ha ha. Dong Wuxiang looked up to the sky and laughed. For a moment he was filled with lofty sentiments. He shouted again, "Everyone recite with me, the Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon. Defeat the Dharma Supreme. Chase all the extraterrestrial demons out of the heavens. Kill the Dharma Supreme and the extraterrestrial demons." Who doesn't? Speak louder. If you think about it, you will live. If you don't, you will die. Those who were still alive were all smart people, so thousands of people shouted together, feeling the atmosphere of the Azura slaughterhouse. Those godlike people were staring at them fiercely, afraid that they would shout too slowly. His voice became softer. At this moment, the cheers truly shook the heavens. The Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon. Defeat the Dharma Supreme. Chase all the heavenly devil whelps out of the sky. Exterminate the Dharma Supreme and heavenly demon. The roars surged out again and again, each wave louder than the last. Behind him, Emole covered her forehead with her hand. She was at a loss for words. Boss wants you to come out and spread the news, guide the direction of public opinion, and then create a storm. Engulfing the capital. I didn't ask you to threaten me with your life. This was simply the legendary oppression of power, forcing a good girl into prostitution. The scene was very grand, but was it useful? Do you know what she's thinking? This guy is always so domineering when doing things. He doesn't use any strategy at all. Dong Wuxiang opened his big mouth and laughed heartily at the sky, full of complacency, a little further away. Many law enforcement officers looked over with resentment. But even if they wanted to kill the thief, they were powerless to do so. This thief was really a little too strong. They couldn't beat him no matter what. On the other side, GMO wielded his sword like the wind, as if he was cutting vegetables. He dashed back and forth in the crowd excitedly, his shouts shaking the sky. Dog Ant. The Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon. Dog Ant. The Dharma Supreme is a heavenly devil whelp. Dog Ant. Boss is GMO. G as in GMO, MO as in GMO. It's not that GMO. It's GMO. G as in GMO, MO as in GMO. Remember all of them, this is my name. Awu Dog Ant. Awu, Luo Kadi roared. Everyone listen up. Don't be fooled by that Dharma Supreme anymore. The Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon. Awu. Do you all hear me? Awu, our sky will definitely not allow the existence of extraterrestrial demons. Damn it, you dare to hit me, you're asking for death. Awu, awu, viburnum flowers bloomed one after another in front of Xie Danqiong, dancing elegantly. In such a beautiful and magnificent scene, all the onlookers and spectators seemed to be completely oblivious to the massacre and bloodshed brought by this beautiful scene. Instead, they were somewhat intoxicated by this dreamlike scene. The only thing they could see was a handsome young man in a white robe, with picturesque features. He was wandering around in the dreamlike sea of flowers, looking around in a daze. In front, behind, beside, and around this peerlessly handsome young man, there were pieces of flesh and blood. Broken limbs added a lot of tragic and cruel beauty to this dreamlike scene. The Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon. The Dharma Supreme is already demonizing the law enforcement officers. Everyone, you must be on high alert. Once you're demonized, there's no turning back. There was no need to hear him say anything. Some of the women who were already smitten by Xie Danqiong's beauty were already frantically echoing him. No matter how big the world was, handsome guys were the most important. Such a handsome guy was really pleasing to the eye, but also tempting to the heart. One by one, the infatuated women with red hearts in their eyes fought to be the first to shout, "The Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon, the Dharma Supreme is the extraterrestrial demon." They followed behind the handsome Xie Danqiong, killing gods and Buddhas in their way. Even the master of calculation and manipulation Mo Tianji probably didn't expect Xie Danqiong to actually use his beauty on such an occasion. Although it was unintentional, it was definitely passive. But it still attracted bees and butterflies. What a monster. Could it be that handsome guys were really that amazing? Ao Shiyun and Rui Badong, a dragon and a phoenix, were also unwilling to be left out. Naturally, they also stirred up huge waves of blood. For a moment, the roar of dragons and phoenixes, the roar of swords and sabers, viburnum flowers bloomed all over the sky, and the sounds of dogs howling incessantly, extremely loud and clear. Tribulation made his move, officially appearing in the heavens. It was just the first time he made a move openly. The whole world was turned into a pile of mud. The whole world completely started to become chaotic, and it was still escalating. The news about the Dharma Supreme being the extraterrestrial demon, through the joint efforts of these 8 parties, began to spread endlessly. There were those who were angry, those who were skeptical, those who were secretly delighted, and those who were ready to fight. Some were looking for the dead. All in all, the various facets of life were revealed in full at this moment. There were also some people who weren't from big clans or law enforcement officers. They didn't participate in the battle at all, nor were they angry or doubtful. They just kept on gloating. Never doubt that there really was such a group of people in the world. As long as someone was unlucky, they would be happy. If that person was famous, they would be even happier. If the person involved could reach the level of the Dharma Supreme, they were so happy that they were bursting with joy. Motherfucker, aren't you supposed to be very impressive? You've been impressive for a full 10,000 years. Finally, you've been messed with for once. This feels so good. Let's hurry and see how the situation is developing. What exactly is going on? What the hell has it got to do with me? Dharma Supreme? With me? Tribulation? He's not my biological father either. He can do whatever he wants. Just fun. It's really fun. It's always been law enforcement officers messing with others. This is the first time I've seen someone messing with law enforcement officers, and it's the boss of the law enforcement officers. This really makes me happy. What? Battle? What? I'm not going. I'll just watch from the side and see who will win in the end. The Dharma Supreme has been pushed into a shit bowl this time. This guy is really unlucky. It had to be said that such people made up a considerable portion of the population. People who only wished for the world to be in chaos, who would open their mouths and gloat at other people's misfortune, were not lacking in any place in this world. There were people who harmed others without benefiting themselves, no matter which world they were in, and there were usually quite a few of them. Damn it, there were even more of them around us. At this moment, it had completely become a pot of messy porridge that had been cooked to a pulp. However, the killing was still going on. Tribulation was still going all out as if he wanted to wash the place with blood. The big clans also gradually joined in. And at this time, it was probably only the big clans who were in charge of various areas who saw that the situation was favorable and acted on their own accord to cooperate. The real order for the big clans to provide support had not actually been issued yet. If the big clans really cooperated fully, the momentum before their eyes would probably be several times greater. And Chu Yang's goal was to blow this matter up as much as possible. The more intense the better. It would be best if it spread throughout the entire heavens. That would be the most ideal situation. In the secret chamber of the Yi clan. Pa. Pa pa pa. Several teacups fell to the ground one after another, smashing into pieces. Some of the teacups fell from their hands, and some of them were too shocked after hearing some news. Their hands and feet trembled, and they touched the teacups on the table and smashed them. Your news, is it true? The ancestor of the Yi clan, Yi Qinshan, sat stiffly on the chair. He raised his head in shock and looked at Ling Muyang opposite him. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. If there were no eye sockets blocking them, they might have shot out. Xiao Qinyu's hands were tightly clenched into fists. He placed them on the table and his face was flushed with excitement. Sure, Pao Xiao had not recovered from his serious injuries. At this moment, his emotions were fluctuating, and he could no longer keep his breath steady. He coughed violently. Ling Muyang. Cough cough. Cough cough cough. This. Is this. Cough cough. The more anxious he was, the more he coughed. Zhuge Zhangqiong and Chening Feng were not in a good mood either. They were panting heavily, and their eyes were fixed on Ling Muyang, waiting for him to speak. To confirm the authenticity of this news. Chapter 1635. These few people were all ancestors of big clans. All of them were at least 10,000 years old. It could be said that all of them had already reached the stage where they wouldn't bat an eyelid even if a mountain collapsed in front of them. But when they heard what Ling Muyang said at this moment, all of them completely lost their composure. The reason was only because of one sentence. After Ling Muyang returned, he immediately summoned everyone urgently. After the meeting, Ling Muyang's entire face was flushed red with excitement. He practically couldn't wait to announce a piece of news. An exceptionally important, even sensational, piece of news. Let me tell everyone a piece of super good news. Our fathers are very likely still alive. Ling Muyang's words immediately stunned everyone on the spot. After he said this, everyone was stunned. Yi Qinshan took a few deep breaths before he finally snapped back to his senses. His body suddenly disappeared, and the next moment he was already right in front of Ling Muyang. Like a real ghost that had materialized, he grabbed Ling Muyang by the collar. What did you say just now? Say it again. Say it clearly. Even if I say it again, it's still good news. There were tears in Ling Muyang's eyes, but he was laughing happily. My father, and Uncle Yi, Uncle Xiao, Uncle Zhuge, Uncle Chen, as well as Uncle Li, Uncle Lan and the rest, there's a very high chance that they're still alive. They're all still alive. After Ling Muyang finished speaking, he took a few deep breaths and suddenly shouted, they're still alive. Do you understand? Do I need to repeat myself? Boom. The place where the several 10,000-year-old elders were actually bustling like a market. Everyone was talking about something excitedly, but no one cared or even heard what the others were saying. Even what they themselves were saying, they were all in a daze. Because of this sudden good news, everyone was so overjoyed that they almost lost their minds. Or rather, they had already lost their minds. Because this news was simply too shocking and too good. After a long time, Yi Qinshan finally remembered to ask, where did you get this news from? Is it accurate? After this question was asked, everyone finally slowly quieted down. Everyone's eyes gathered on Ling Muyang. Their questioning gazes were self-evident. However, their questioning gazes were mixed with a bit of suspicion, a bit of panic and a bit of fear. They couldn't help but doubt, panic and fear. Was that true? They had been brothers for 10,000 years, so everyone had an almost instinctive trust in Ling Muyang. As long as it came from his mouth, everyone would instinctively believe it. Anything could be believed. That was why he hadn't thought of investigating the source and authenticity of the news until now. Investigating the source and authenticity of the information after the revelry seemed absurd. Moreover, it was absolutely impossible for these people to make a mistake. But now it really happened. This was because the news this time was too big. If it was spread wrongly, it would definitely cause great regret. This kind of empty joy would make people collapse. I went to find the master of Calamity Sword and got this information from him. Ling Muyang calmed himself down. He took a deep breath and said, "More or less, all of you have some kind of grudge or connection with the Calamity Sword Master. Only my Ling clan hasn't offended him yet. We even have some friendship with him. So, I want to see if there is any room for cooperation. After all, the extraterrestrial demon is powerful. If it's just us, even if we don't lose, the chances of winning are slim. It's always good to have more help, especially when this help comes from the legendary Calamity Sword Master." All the elders pricked up their ears and listened attentively. They knew that the truth of the matter must have originated from this conversation. After I went, I found out about the extraterrestrial demon. It was indeed difficult to match. The Dharma Supreme had demonized the high-level power of the law enforcement officers and was gradually infiltrating the lower levels. I was filled with anger and scolded Dongfang Badeo. But the Calamity Sword Master said, "The current Dongfang Badeo is no longer the Dongfang Badeo of the past, but one of the tribulations from 30,000 years ago, Diwu Chochang. It's Diwu Chochang who is using Dongfang Badeo's body to survive. He is replacing Dongfang Badeo's identity." As soon as this shocking news came out, Yi Qinshan, Xiao Qinyu and the others felt as if thunder had struck above their heads. Their faces couldn't help but twitch. Regarding Diwu Chochang, I believe that the Calamity Sword Master wouldn't lie. Since there was an exception in the previous generation of tribulations, I couldn't help but ask about my father. At that time I was just hoping, but I didn't expect. Ling Muyang recalled his mood when he asked that question and was still trembling with excitement. What did he say? All the elders asked together. The Calamity Sword Master said, "Our fathers are very likely to still be alive. It's just that they are not in the plane we are in. At present." Ling Muyang took a deep breath and stopped his voice from trembling. He said solemnly, "Now they are fighting in the extraterrestrial battlefield, fighting the extraterrestrial demon. If they have not been sacrificed, they are naturally still alive." As soon as he finished speaking, the whole room was silent. Yi Qinshan coughed twice and murmured, "Father? The extraterrestrial battlefield, fighting the extraterrestrial demon." His voice became a little hoarse. He covered his mouth with his hand and coughed repeatedly. He secretly wiped away the tears at the corners of his eyes with one finger and took a deep breath. Xiao Qinyu looked up at the sky. His mouth was tightly pursed as if he was swallowing something. His tall and straight body was trembling from light to intense. It could be clearly seen that he was restraining himself, but he couldn't. Instead, it became more and more intense. Autumn opened her mouth as if she wanted to laugh happily, but she almost cried. She hurriedly shut her mouth, but her tears had already fallen. The others were also so excited that they almost couldn't control themselves. 10,000 years, a whole 10,000 years have passed. Yi Qinshan's voice was hoarse and low and he couldn't speak properly. All the old brothers felt a wave of sadness wash over them. The descendants of heroes, Calamity. This was their glory, but it was also where their pain lay. In his childhood memories, his father was an indomitable figure that could support both heaven and earth. His heroic spirit was unparalleled. His hero was invincible. He swept the world. He descended into the world. He was omnipotent. However, he left long ago. No one knew where he went. There was no news of him after he left. He only left behind an eternal legend in the heavenly layer continent. Why did the big clans resist the Calamity Sword Master? On one hand, it was naturally to ask for the continuation of the clan. No one would be willing to see their clan, which had been passed down for countless years, be destroyed. However, there was another reason, and that was, if their clans were destroyed, who would spread the praises of Lord Father's great achievements? This was the foundation that Lord Father left behind. The foundation that he left behind for me to protect. We will protect it with our lives. One day in the future, when we meet Lord Father in the underworld, we can also have a clear conscience. Today you have appeared once again. However, it was already 10,000 years later that the world had changed. Cough cough, cough cough, sob sob. Sher Paoli coughed repeatedly as if trying to suppress his agitated emotions. However, in the end he really couldn't help but cry. Lord Father. When Lord Father left home that day, it was still midnight. At that time I was sleeping and Lord Father secretly kissed me. I was already awake then, but I deliberately didn't open my eyes. I regret it so much. Why didn't I open my eyes? 10,000 years, I have regretted it for 10,000 years. From then on, Lord Father left and never returned. However, that morning, the feeling of Lord Father rubbing against my face was unforgettable, unforgettable. Sure Pauli burst into tears. But now, Lord Father's foundation, the Sure clan, has been completely destroyed. How can I face Lord Father now? His words hit the nail on the head and everyone silently shed tears. There was a long silence. For a moment, sighs, sobs and cries were all mixed together, and it didn't calm down for a long time. Now, since we already know the whereabouts of Lord Father and the others, we naturally have to look for them. Charge up the Heaven Imperial Court, increase our strength along the way, and go to the outer realm to fight the extraterrestrial demons together with Lord Father. Autumn wiped away her tears and shouted proudly. As the saying goes, brothers fight while fathers fight. Zhuge Zhangxiong said solemnly, Lord Father and the others have already fought for 10,000 years, it's time for us to share some of the burden. Therefore, this encirclement of the heavenly demons this time is the first battle against the extraterrestrial demons in the future. We must not lose. Ling Muyang said solemnly. Everyone's eyes lit up and they nodded solemnly. Amidst the joyous yet sorrowful atmosphere, someone suddenly heaved a long sigh, his voice bleak and sorrowful. Everyone turned to look. The person who heaved a long sigh was Xiao Qinyu. For a moment, everyone's hearts sank. They actually didn't know what to say. Xiao Qinyu turned his head away and then lowered it deeply, as if he had committed a crime. His entire spirit seemed to have collapsed. Qinyu. Yi Qinshan called out solemnly. Xiao Qinyu shuddered all over. He raised his head, his eyes lifeless. With a tragic smile he said, all of us are still fine. But what about Uncle Li and Uncle Lan? When I meet all the uncles, what should I say? Lan Buhui is already dead. But Li Chuanbua was forced to his death by me. I forced him to his death. He smiled tragically, blood flowing from the corners of his mouth. What should I do? How can I face my Lord Father and all the uncles? My younger brother is already dead. I even forced Chuanbua to his death with my own hands. How can I face Uncle Li? Everyone fell silent together. Yes, this was undoubtedly a dead knot that couldn't be untied. Xiao Qinyu raised his head and smiled tragically. Human kinship is really strange. In the past, when our fathers were still around, we were also like brothers. Because everyone knew that our fathers were brothers who had gone through life and death together. Even if we weren't brothers, we were even more like brothers. It was the same for our father's generation and our father's generation. Therefore, everyone felt that we were on the same side, brothers of the same generation. It's a pity that our father's generation went missing. So, we started to gradually drift apart. Yes, our father's generation was gone, and we were all busy with our own things. The emotional ties between our father's generation in the past were broken. Therefore, we slowly started to not treat each other as brothers. We started to suspect and plot against each other. Slowly we became strangers. Slowly we actually became enemies. The last chapter was doubly updated. Was finally done. A huge rock was also lifted from his heart. Today's last chapter, Xiao Qinyu's words, are also my sentiments. When my grandparents were still around, it was lively and lively. More than 30 relatives got along very well. Ever since the elders passed away one after another, the house also gradually became deserted. None of us did anything wrong, but many relatives seemed to have drifted apart just like that for some inexplicable reason and then disappeared. This seemed to be how human relationships worked. The elders maintained kinship while the young developed new kinship. As the elders passed away, the kinship also followed suit. Although this was the way of the world, it was indeed worth lamenting over. Chapter 1636. Everyone was ashamed as they listened to Xiao Qinyu's sobbing words. Everyone's faces were full of discomfort. That was the truth. Finally, some things have reached the point of no return. But at this time it was said that our fathers are still alive. So, everyone felt that the distant relationship suddenly became close again. Xiao Qinyu raised his head abruptly, his face full of tears. He roared at the top of his lungs, but how can the dead come back? Li Chuanbo was forced to death by me. Forced to death by me. Am I still human? At this moment Xiao Qinyu was almost crazy. He was on the verge of breaking down. The brothers stood there in a daze, completely not knowing how to console him. That was the truth. All along, kinship in the world seemed to be maintained only by relying on the relationship between the elders. As the elders grew old and passed away in the first few years, they still exchanged information. Slowly, it changed to once every few years, once every few decades, and then once every few thousand years. After a few thousand years, there were even more conflicts. As for 10,000 years later, they finally became enemies. Baidu searched to see the latest chapter. They could not live under the same sky and could not coexist in the same lifetime. However, the strangest thing was that at this time, they still found out that their fathers were still alive. It was as if at this moment the bonds of friendship in the past had returned, and they all felt close to each other. But what had already happened in between? How should they face the irreversible things? How could they make up for the sacrifices that had already been made? At this moment, any consolation or explanation would be of no use. It would only add on to Xiao Qinyu's burden. When the kinship of the older generation that united them was gone, as they grew older, their hearts would gradually fade, and their greed would continue to grow. It was a very normal thing for them to do things that hurt each other. Everyone had done it before. Who could console who? Let's leave the painful things of the past to the future. The plan now. The only way is to completely destroy the Dharma Supreme and the Heavenly Demon. This demonic disaster has yet to be eliminated. What right do you have to talk about other things? Ling Muyang said coldly. Everyone nodded. But, after the ecstasy of knowing that their fathers might still be alive passed, everyone felt that there was a lot on their minds. They were like children who had done something wrong and were about to be reprimanded by adults. All of them started to feel uneasy. Admittedly, Xiao Qinyu has done something wrong, but don't tell me you guys didn't do anything wrong too? Even he knows how to grieve. What about the rest of you? Ling Muyang said coldly, Yi Qinshan. The destruction of the Li clan, the killing of Chuanbua, the entire plan was controlled and pushed by you from behind the scenes. Could it be that you don't have any responsibility at all? There was also the matter of Uncle Jun's family. Yi Qinshan. Zhuge Chining Feng. Don't you feel ashamed? If I meet my parents in the future, I'd like to see how you're going to explain yourselves. I'll be able to fully explain what you've done. Ling Muyang's words could be said to be impolite. Every single one of his words exposed everyone's scars. It was extremely ruthless. However, the faces of Yi Qinshan and the others all twitched, but no one retorted. They looked at each other and sighed. These were all facts. How could he refute that? After a long while, someone finally spoke. With a sneer, Chining Feng said darkly, To us, this matter is indeed a huge regret. However, we're not the only ones who feel this kind of discomfort, right? Don't the Tribulation Sword Master and the rest feel the same? What are they feeling discomfort about? Make yourself clear. Ling Muyang's eyebrows were already about to rise. He really couldn't understand what Tribulation would feel discomfort about. The previous generations of Tribulation needed to destroy the big clans established by the previous generations of Tribulation in order to complete their work. If our parents didn't die and are still fighting against the extraterrestrial demons, then it's highly possible that the previous generations of Tribulation didn't die either. If they're all still alive, then don't they have an irreconcilable feud between them? The Tribulation of the next generation is the biggest culprit who destroyed the descendants of the previous generation of Tribulation. This has been the case for the past 100,000 years. Severing their bloodline, severing their heirs, this is an irreconcilable enmity. Whether it's the current Tribulation Sword Master or the previous generations of Tribulation brothers, they probably didn't have a good time when they went up, right? Chining Feng sneered. Nonsense. Bastard. Ling Muyang flew into a rage. We're talking about our own business now. Why are you talking about other people's business? Do you think your discomfort will be relieved when others are suffering? Bastard. What kind of bullshit attitude is this? Can you be more shameless? You're harming others without benefiting yourself. What the hell? Chining Feng blushed and said, I'm just analyzing. I'm just stating facts. Bullshit. Ling Muyang was furious. You just said that the next generation of Tribulation was the culprit who destroyed the previous generation of Tribulation. If you want to talk about this discomfort, didn't our parents suffer it? Didn't they also kill the descendants of the previous Tribulation and destroy their clans before going up? You bastard, you're cursing your own father? Isn't that right? You're just stating facts, aren't you? In an instant, the surrounding people looked at him with hostility. These few sentences of Chining Feng seriously incurred the wrath of the crowd. That's how everyone gets old. It's fine if you're cursing your own father, but you're cursing my father as well? Are you courting death? Yes, actually, that's not what I meant. Chining Feng was completely flustered in an instant. He waved his hands repeatedly and nodded and bowed. Sweat even appeared on his face. Bosses, I really didn't mean that. I'm just stating facts. Really? You're still talking about the facts? Then please tell me what exactly do you mean? Yi Qinshan questioned. You're such a troublemaker. When will you change that temper of yours that harms others without benefiting yourself? You've been like this since you were young. You're always gloating over others' misfortune. You don't let others have a good time even when you're suffering. You never learn your lesson. This fellow needs to be taught a lesson. Exactly. Beat him up. The old fellows rubbed their fists and surrounded him. Qin Yingfeng knew that something was wrong. He let out a strange cry and was about to escape when Ling Muyang punched him in the face. His face immediately turned red and everyone swarmed him in an instant. Bang bang. They really hit him. Although they didn't kill him, they still hit him hard. It was fine as long as he was still alive. It had been a long time since they ganged up on him. North of the capital, on a certain road about 1,000 miles away, an old man and a young girl were walking over. The old man was an old man who looked like he was out of this world. Judging from the way he swaggered on the road, he must be a person who had read a lot of books and poems and was jealous to the bone. As for the young girl, she was a peerless beauty like a pearl. Along the way, 3,000 people turned their heads to look at her. This Tianding convention will definitely be very lively. But the Dharma Supreme must have other plans. He's very ambitious. Yes, Master. I think the Tianding convention this time must be brought forward by the Dharma Supreme and the extraterrestrial demon. I'm afraid there's a great mystery behind it. Yes, Master. This old man is rather interested in that Tianding convention. Really, Master? From the looks of it, the scale this time will definitely be much grander than the previous years. But why are there so many people? Seems a little too many. I'm afraid there's something else. Yes, Master. But can't we leave quickly? No, this old man hates seeing your big brother. If I can see him later, then so be it. In short, it's better to see him later than earlier. It's best if we can see him later. Master, why are you like this? What's wrong with my big brother? My big brother is much more handsome than you, Master. He's brave and knowledgeable, chivalrous and gentle, courageous and benevolent. Cough cough, stop. There are more ignorant people over there. Disciple, you should practice your skills in poison. That's what you should do. So boring. There aren't any experts. What kind of practice is this? What a waste of good medicine. Just as they were talking, there was already someone with a sword at his waist. He walked over valiantly with a face full of self-admiration. This little lady greets you. Of course, this was some ignorant fool who wanted to pick up girls. He saw an old man and a young man walking on the road like this. The old man was too weak to stand up to a gust of wind, and the young one was like a willow branch swaying in the wind. No matter how he looked at it, they didn't seem to have much martial strength. He was really lucky today to have met such a little beauty with no one to protect her. Looking at her travel-worn figure, she actually didn't get robbed early. He was really too lucky. It must be said that this person's observational skills were really good. He could even observe the two of them on their long journey. But he didn't think deeper. How could such a beauty who came from afar not have any ideas? If they could, why would it be his turn? This fellow probably didn't expect that today was definitely not the day of his ancestors. Instead, it seemed like there was black smoke rising from his ancestors' graves. Hopefully, he already had children or uncles so that his family's future wouldn't be ruined. Because he actually picked up Miss Heavenly Poison's head to pick up girls. How could it be good? Get the hell out of here, you bastard. Hurry up and get lost as far as you can. I don't want to waste time with you. Chu Lur, who was anxious to see her elder brother, asked her master to speed up but wasn't allowed to. Naturally, she was filled with anger. Seeing that this fellow actually came over to tease her, she was even more furious. However, Chu Lur wasn't a bloodthirsty person, so she only reprimanded him. Oh, little lady's temper is quite bad. I like it. That person was about to reach out and touch Chu Lur's pretty face. The next moment, that hand had only reached out halfway, but it already started to turn black from the fingertips. Then, his fingers turned into the color of ink, and it quickly spread all the way up. Chu Lur's eyes were filled with killing intent. You don't want to get lost. Then go to the gates of hell. I won't send you off. Southeast Chu Clan. Ever since Meng Chaoran arrived at the Chu Clan, he had basically become Yang Rulin's guest. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.